making shirts for their cons. Conrad Brandmule.
Oh yeah, I see Conrad regularly.
Yeah, Conrad ran a lot of the BK cons, and he did shirts for I think most of his cons in the later years. Now I wish I'd have bought a lot more of them. You know.
Yeah, that was when I was childless and had some disposable income. I could just go.
Right.
Yeah. Grad student life, or late college years for a lot of us life. It's like, I'll just do my homework in the car or at the con. Yeah, right.
Well, I went to a Furundy con once, and someone called and said, "Hey, you want to go to a con in Michigan?" And I said, "Sure, when?" And they're like, "We'll be at your house in 15 minutes."
Oh my gosh.
We literally drove there that night, and we're like slept in the car as we drove and got there in time for like the first slot the next day.
That's amazing. How far of a drive is that? Where'd you go?
It was in northern Michigan, so it was like 7 hours or something.
Did you so you're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
So you had to like drive down around a lake or something?
No, it was in northern Michigan, so it was in the UP.
I don't know what that means. I used to live in Chicago.
The Upper Peninsula is attached to Wisconsin.
But still pretty damn far away.
Oh yeah, it's on the long end opposite of the state.
The good old days.
It's funny, Jay, he sends a personal message to me saying that, "Oh, we're live now. I'm on the stream, so you don't have to."
When did I do that?
Oh, you did it just now.
I think he sends a message to a lot of people in Discord.
I do, but did I send something to you?
No, you did. This time you did.
I was like, oh my gosh.
But you said, I got a pop-up saying that you were live, and I
was like, oh my gosh, did I send something? Yep. I was like, what?
Well, I only have like 96. I've been keeping up, so I only have 96 notifications.
Feel better now, Anna? I sent it to you.
Yes. Awesome, thank you.
I only got four streams this week. So, it's a manageable week.
Jeez.
I know. Plus my real job. Plus kid. Plus.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
Plus, spouse. I threw her out of the house today. So I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Mine's going to Disney World in a couple weeks for 6 days with her best friend, and I'm like, you're not allowed to buy a lightsaber.
Oh, that's the only reason to go.
But I caved in. I told her she could buy a lightsaber.
Nice.
Because you want one.
Exactly. If she buys one for you, then. Yeah.
No. You have to go through that experience, right, to get the lightsaber.
Oh, okay. So you
really?
can't buy for others. You can only buy for yourself.
It's a whole theatrical experience they do these days.
Yeah, they buy them and stuff.
Oh,
You have to put them together.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
You pick the parts, and you get a random crystal, maybe, and anyway, it's a
random kyber crystal.
Yeah, I think so. You may be able to pick your color, but every once in a while, someone gets like a black one. I think.
Yeah, there's I think they have like black and purple and stuff like randomly mixed in.
But super rare.
You might get a rare when you do something.
I had if you guys ever played Star Wars: The Old Republic, what a great game that was. Old MMO.
That's a game we haven't played in a long time.
I had a white one. I had a white lightsaber. I got the white.
Oh yeah.
White on white. Yeah.
Like Ahsoka.
Limited time things. All right. I'm not. You know what? I'm not sending this out to 1,000 people today. I'm just in that kind of mood in Discord. So, what's up there, Phantom and Fuzz? Good to see you. Because I'm a big deal now, Anna. Right now, I'm over 10,000 followers. Yeah.
Oh,
right?
did you get over?
Yeah.
They didn't purge you again?
They purged him back and forth, but
it'll happen again, though.
But
now that you're over 10,000, you have to give away that Best of Dragon.
I did. Where were you Sunday night?
Oh, wife points.
But guess what? So something, I'll tell you a story about that real quick. I can't remember a freaking button to press. Holy cheese, Jay. Holy cheese. Hey, Troy. You are blessed. You're lucky. After about 10, I was like, Troy, I'm done with that tonight. So, Fortune works. Yeah. So, Troy won one and was kind enough. He goes, "Oh my God, I already have this."
Oh, cool.
So on not tonight on Gavin Sunday night, I'm gonna re-give away the second one. So gonna skip through this. What time? Let me skip through some of these. I'll skip through the Portrait Works and Chuck real quick. Because, I still don't have a new ad from Chuck.
Trollord Games. Join the fray.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Here comes Greyhawk Mike.
Perfect.
Oh, that's good. I kind of like that stack like that. What's up, Mike?
Hello.
So Gary Julian put down in Discord. I gotta find it now. 1 away from 200. Best of L&L is what he said for next week. Because we are 200 Legends of Lore next week.
That's awesome.
That's a lot. Yep.
We're on 246 coming up on Gavin this week. And then my 1000th adventure will be June 3rd.
Oh wow.
Yeah, now you know how old I really am. 1000th adventure. Guesses between 3,350 and 3,400 sessions. How do you know? Just definitely know the number of adventures. Crazy. 12, 13. Oh, I'm going to make that campaign. Don't know why. One of those weird things.
You know, we do need to get Tulok on one of these times because I think he owes me an adventure record from one of his play tests. Remember, that was the one time I got to fly up there and meet you all. Was when we had that Triad conference play testing session. And that's where I got the shirt. And I was positive we play tested a year 6 or 7 meta regional. And I thought I played it with my half-orc barbarian Karn because he kind of broke Tulok's brain with some of his shenanigans. But I can't find the adventure record.
See, that's why you gotta keep everything.
Gotta keep a record.
What is Casey? What does the back of your shirt say? Which one are you wearing?
Well, that's a great question. It's the one about it makes fun of Dragonlance.
One that makes fun of Dragonlance.
Yeah, hang on.
Like, what do we do?
Don't
No one
take
needs to see this.
Don't take it off live.
Yeah, I say
Yeah.
don't take
It's
it
only
off live.
black now.
It says no evil twins, no time travel,
Oh,
no comet smashing into the O-Earth. Welcome to Highfolk, home of the original plot lines.
nice.
So, who's up for fighting the army of orcs invading Elven lands?
That was like one of the first ones.
That's an
wasn't
old one.
That is
Yeah, that's
cool.
an old one.
it?
That's very snarky.
Well, we had a lot of them, like in Highfolk, if you're half elf, you're only half cool. Or welcome to Highfolk, come for the fun, stay because you're dead. They were usually some sort of snarky response.
I think ours were just the top 10 lists.
Oh yeah, I know. I have a couple BK top 10 lists. That's for sure.
Yeah, we did 2 different, or Patrick Brown did 2 different versions of those. Maybe he'll be in the audience tonight. He's been pretty active in the community lately.
I still think Eric Mona thinks we have Tulak and Bowman on tonight. It
Well-
sounded like that from that post.
I think it was confusing because I tagged them to try and get their attention, even though I'm not friends with them, I don't think, although I was following Bullman for a while. And then when Greg just reposted my post, it looked like that they were on the billboard. So maybe they'll get pissed off and show up. That'd be just as fine.
You never know. But
Eric Mona was in Roll for Combat talking about the Pathfinder update that is coming out. That they just
When was that?
announced revised.
Just today
rulebooks.
they announced.
oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Their
So,
release dates are almost identical to the WotC release dates.
Wow,
Okay,
that's like
oh, that's
ironic. Or on
Yeah.
Yep, it sounds really cool. So they're
Yeah.
they're making them OGL free, so to speak. So yeah.
Pathfinder 2.5.
Well, Eric said that I guess that's up to the fan community what they eventually want to call it, but it's a kind of a weeding out the OGL and making all the erratas in there and reformat the books, but no major updates to the rules in that sense.
Yeah, I think they're taking because they've released so many different books that have like
Mhm.
updates for various things. That
Yeah.
they're just gonna
Yeah,
crunch it
so
all
it's a
together.
refresh rather than or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
My
get. I
freaking
listen to
title's wrong. Oh my god. Good evening, everyone. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna introduce everyone while I'm fixing the damn title on the front of Twitch. Oh my gosh. Tony, welcome. Welcome back. How are you?
Hey, I'm judging you right now, so that's really what's going on.
I'm a mental midget today. Rough day. Tony, you were a Highfolk player. Tell us about your tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go around the
It
circle.
is a long time ago, just so you know.
That's all right. But it sounds like you enjoyed it.
Oh, it was tons of fun. Actually, I used to go around to many different regions because being in the center of the United States allowed a lot of flexibility with that, and there was a bunch of them butted up against. So most frequently, I played in Highfolk because that was the home region, but a lot of times it'd go to the Shieldlands, which is Minnesota. So because it was right there, it was close. But I went all over. But I had the most fun in Highfolk.
Well, great to
Great.
hear, and I want to hear about because I don't remember anything. If we even talked a lot in depth on in the first discussion we ever had.
We really did it.
No, I didn't think so.
We did have Greg on episode 35 when we had the big group of
Right.
divers and myself and Vernon
The first
and
one.
Verbamoth. So we never did a deep dive. And then on episode 75, we were talking about the RPGA and the early days of living Greyhawk. And again, it wasn't a deep dive at all into Highfolk. And then Tony was on for our awesome Ladies of Living Greyhawk show, episode like 91, I think it was, a couple of years ago. So this will be our first deep dive, if I can speak right, into Highfolk.
Those are all so long ago.
Mike,
I
don't
know.
say that because this is the first weekend in May is my 5-year anniversary for streaming. So yeah,
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, it's coming. It is coming. So 5 years of doing this, and then just where things have gone from this point, But I'm reminiscing. I had a long day today, everyone, work and all that stuff. So I'm a little bit all over the place. So I apologize. But Tony, it's great to have you back here. We
Thank
missed
you.
you at GaryCon. We had such fun. It was a great
Oh,
time.
I'm sad.
Yes. Well, you should be because I threw. No, I'm just kidding. I threw up a bleeder against Ed. An Ed created monster, which looks like a beholder, but it's not. It sucks blood out of you. Disgusting.
Nice.
That
Nice.
he made in like Dragon 59 or something.
Yeah.
And Bill actually painted the miniature for it. It was great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Nice.
It was a fun time. So, Greg, welcome back. Good to see you.
Hey, yeah, good to see you.
Tell everyone who you are. We got so many new viewers since the last time you were on.
Well, I'll chalk that up to people wanting to come see, what I was on. I'm sure that's what.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Greg Marks. I used to be one of the Highfolk Triad members. I now work with Tony as a one of the D&D Adventures League admins.
That's awesome.
Freelance for a whole bunch of companies. WotC, Ghostfire, Kobold Press being the most frequent, though Alligator Alley and some others as well.
Excellent. How long have you been doing the Adventures League stuff now?
Well, are we counting since before it was called the Adventures League?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Then 2000, so 23 years.
Dang.
Oh,
So you
wow.
went right from living Greyhawk to it.
No, that's
Yeah.
pre-Living Greyhawk 2000.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
So it's
I mean,
obviously
that's the
pre-
first
No,
year.
because
that's right.
wasn't it 2000? Well, Living Greyhawk was
It's
2001.
2000.
wasn't
It was, Greyhawk started in 2000 if you count the premiere at Origins, and
Year
then
zero.
there were year zero. There were
Right.
cons in that last quarter as well.
Yeah. So, but I mean, just specifically Adventurers League.
Oh, since Adventurers League started. So, Tony, when did we start Adventurers League? 8 years, 7 years. What is it now?
Oh,
Whenever 5e came out.
Yeah,
2014.
So it's
Yeah.
almost 10.
It was called
Right.
something else in 4E, right?
Well, in 4E, yeah, it wasn't Adventurers League. It was
Living Forgotten Realms, right?
well, Living Forgotten Realms was still Yeah, still technically part of we were WPN for a short time officially, and then we were RPGA before that. So that was all part of Living Forgotten Realms, and there was Living Dark Sun, and there were a couple of other campaigns going back in 4E as well.
There was a Living Dark Sun, really?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Wow.
That's news to
There
me.
was a
Did
lot
not
of
know.
living campaigns back in the day.
Mhm.
Yeah. We had Living Kingdoms of Kalamar, Living Force for Star Wars stuff, Living Death. I always forget the one that was like set in space. Audience always reminds
Well, there
me.
was Alternity for a while.
Arcanus.
There was
Oh,
Arcanus.
Arcanus.
Arcanus,
Living
yeah.
Arcanus was.
Legend of the Five Rings had a living campaign, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Living Changeling.
That one I don't know.
Virtual Seattle for Shadowrun. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Jungle.
Oh, wow.
There was. Oh yeah, there were literally
None of
dozens.
these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's an education for me. I did not, hey, Patrick, Spycraft Gaming and BS says.
They should have done a living paranoid campaign because you would have just been creating a new character every session. That would have been hilarious.
All the living, yep.
I don't think I played that game. I don't think I ever got past character creation.
Right. Paranoid is the one where you die as
Sounds
soon as
worse than
you're
Traveler.
done.
Yeah, sounds worse than Traveler.
No,
Yeah.
nothing's worse than the MechWarrior one where a camping trip goes horribly awry. Consult Linlaw subtable. So yeah.
Character creation there too. Yeah.
You got it.
Nice.
Yeah, so that fun stuff. So tonight we're gonna chat about some really cool things. We got Casey with us as normal, myself, Anna, and Mike wrapping up number 199, and we got to figure out what we're doing for the 200 Legends of Lore next week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. But so
And
Casey,
Stella.
I should have held out.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Or you can come on next week too. So
You didn't tell me that was going to happen. I should have held out.
we haven't even figured out that it's going to happen.
No. So just
We kind
know
of-
for the 200th Gabbin, and we just did this last week too, number 245. But for 200th Gabbin, I had Ed Greenwood, Jeff Grubb, and Jim Ward on. So, and again,
It's hard to beat that. Yeah.
And then we had them last week too. So
What
that
the
was
heck
fun.
do we do for next week?
Well, yes. What do we do? We'll figure something out. We'll talk. Gary had some ideas too. Hey, Chet Mittenson. Yeah, Chet. Good to see you. So, take it over, Casey, because we're gonna delve into some great meta orgs here, and also some other discussion of the. My question: What was the synopsis of the Highfolk campaign? What happened?
Yeah.
Because
Well, there were sort of two stories.
Yeah.
So the first story was we had a 5-year arc and a 3-year arc, and we knew when they originally were written, they were told plan for 5 years, and somewhere around 4 years or so, we weren't told it was ending, but we were told 5 years was too long for a story. Plan your next arc to be 3. And so that was sort of accounted for. And I mean, really, it was about repelling IUs like you'd expect.
Okay.
And then the real story behind it all was about Tony's mom.
Nice.
Not that she knew that at the beginning.
But we got to hear about that.
Who was your
Yeah.
mom, Tony?
My character's mother, because I decided to go dragon disciple.
Oh,
But
nice.
because you couldn't be a actual half dragon,
Right.
that was the only way to do it. So turns out she was the evil green dragon protecting the forest.
Like
That
in
lives there.
canon, and I use the evil. There's this ancient or older green dragon mentioned in the Vesvi.
Yep.
Awesome.
We had
Awesome.
and she actually ended up accidentally. So our plot line became the conclusion to the campaign in a roundabout way, because of the Gen Con before the end of the campaign. I was sitting with Britt Frey, and he's
My
like,
former roommate.
Yep. He's like, I don't know how we're going to end this. But it's got to be something about IUs. And I said, do I have a plot for you? Because I have more plot hooks to wrap up than I can finish. And so the end arc was largely about her nickname was the Emerald Dawn. The Emerald Dawn was attempting to become a god. And she had been throughout the entire 8 years accumulating power as this ancient green dragon. And she was very, very protective of the Vesfi. So while she was lawful evil, in some ways she was doing good, not because it was good, but because it benefited her.
It was hers.
So, well, right, of course. And well, it was hers. And so she was eventually going to become a god of magic and of the Vesfi. And which actually she achieved that goal at the end of the campaign, thanks to choices made by characters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in both the core plot line and in the Highfolk plot line.
Nice.
I didn't know that was going on in the wrap-up core. I was helping Britt with the IUs trying to become a more powerful god and the codex, and I wrote all the Kellenin stuff on one of his final adventures. But that's really neat to hear. That big dragon, it's in IU's Evil. We had a really powerful old green dragon in the Felreave, and now I went to headcanon it that they were sisters, and yours was probably the older, more powerful sister, but the one in the Felreave was also supposed to be pretty old and nasty. But she was mostly just decoration. We didn't really revolve too many plots around her.
Anna,
We had go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Anna, do you have that dragon on your map? I don't think you do.
For Vidara up in the North, Velvet is not that. That's not the one.
I think we changed her name.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Then I need
think
to
we changed
figure
her
out the
name
other.
partly because
I
of,
have it if you need it, because my character's
Thank
binder
you.
is still
So
over
awesome.
here.
Is it up
it was
here?
Shardanthalus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, she made it into 4th edition.
Did she?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
Oh,
Because
I guess I didn't know that. I didn't.
when we wrote
Yeah.
Dungeon Delve for 4th edition, my adventure was about the return of the Emerald Dawn.
Okay. I hope you have an
Oh,
easier
wow.
name
Okay,
for
that's
her now
awesome.
because that
I would
that
like to
name-
read that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Tony, if you could just Discord that to me, and then
Yep.
or Discord it in the Ed chat one where Xana and I are both there, and then Anna can make
Yeah.
the change. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome
That's
because
awesome.
that name is so difficult to pronounce. That will be
Ophio
wonderful.
Verdor,
Oh yeah, it's kind of
blah,
yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So when we talk
Great.
Highfolk, we talk about the entirety of the Vespi as well, correct?
Oh yeah, we were all the way from Highfolk all the way far up. So the entire Vespi, the Sepia uplands, to the foothills of the Klatspurs. There was always a lot of disagreement between us and Pearland as to how much of the mountains belonged to who. But since they were Australia, it's not like we didn't interact a lot. So
Right.
It didn't matter if you had overlap there. So, all right,
Yeah.
well, that's good to know too. But so you had. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just a Highfolk Valley. You had a large area.
oh, it was massive.
It was
Yeah.
huge.
We had a gigantic region.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you had the capability of and I love the Vespi. You know, I do a lot of adventuring here myself. It's just some really unbelievable, great stories. You know, Eyes of Evil, Mark Lands, and I'm assuming in your Living Greyhawk you have some wonderful stories. So,
Oh, yeah.
What? Okay, first arc year 5. Just Ayus was the main.
Well, it was partly Ayus. Like that was the big thing. There were sort of like 2 or 3 main villains that were doing things behind the scenes.
Okay.
He was at one point called the Backloonish Gentleman. He was later called the Necromancer. He had a much more complicated Backloonish name. He was a Necromancer of Nerol. There was all sorts of fighting between the Elven Clans, like the reason that Ayus was making such progress. We had a secret war between the Blood Owls and the Shadowclaw. We had it was all wheels within wheels, and we long ago learned that the best villain was a player character. So we
That's awesome.
purposefully would give different player characters wildly conflicting goals. Like, you believe the only way to save the Vespi is to do X, and then you believe the only way to save the Vespi is to make sure X never happens.
Nice.
And now I don't have to run the adventure anymore. You two go.
Greg is very good at that.
I like it.
So Scotch Jeff just asked, was there a significant presence of Halfworks and Highfolk?
Yeah, it was because of IUs. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And in fact, that was how I became a Triad member. Interestingly enough, was because of Halfworks. They I went to the premier Highfolk con, and I witnessed some bad behavior by some Highfolk players towards some Halfwork characters that were actually Triad members from the Pale. And so I wrote one of the year one adventures called "What's a Halfwork to Do," and it was actually all about racism towards Halfworks, where basically bad guys were doing things and blaming this Halfwork who was just this young boy who had nothing to do with it, but everyone believed him, believed the bad guys because, well, he's a Halfwork, he must be the bad guy.
Wow.
And it was a popular adventure, and that led to me almost immediately becoming a Triad member pretty quickly.
Pretty progressive for early 2000s in the gaming community, you know.
It was more me trying to prevent just because he's a Halfwork doesn't mean you can execute other player characters. Like,
and you ran into that where people were playing paladins and thought, well, that just means I can kill any evil humanoid on sight.
Right.
And I'd be like, no, role play this out, dude. It's a goblin who hasn't done anything to you.
Right.
Not been incriminated on any legal charges. You can't just kill a goblin for walking down the street. And there's going to be people in Jay's audience here that are like, well, if I see a goblin, I kill it. Not at my table. I'll just tell you that right now.
And that was the problem. People bought tickets and sat down together.
Right.
And one guy was, hey, you're a Halfwork. All Halfworks are evil. And like leans over to one of the other characters. He's a Halfwork. They must be evil. And I don't even know if there was a half hour of play before they took the half out characters out as a group and killed them.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, it didn't go over well. It was quite a snafu, I'll say.
So let me ask a question tied into that. One of my favorite groups in the southern Vestry is the Torch of Grumsh, which they're indigenous orcs and they hate the IU's orcs, but they're lawful evil because they worship Grumsh. Did you actually have them in your campaign, and were they working with player characters, or were they getting slaughtered by them too, or so?
I'm trying to think. There was a tribe that got used at least once that was a tribe of orcs that was, I think we might have used them in one of the inter battle interactives.
Okay.
But they were not a major player to my knowledge. Tony, do you remember any?
Because it was mostly the Iusians. I do remember you did do something with them, but it was sort of one-off. I think it was during a BI.
Yeah.
Katana, good to see you back. Oh my gosh, Katana.
Yeah, IU's Evil is just such a great source for Highfolk and the rest of the IU's meta region, as we would call it. The Torch of Grumsh info is in there. I just put it in the chat, just a small snippet of it.
Thank you. It's one of my favorites because the enemy, I love dealing with multiple factions, not just one against one, but throwing in hey, here's an evil group you can actually work with against IUs.
Right.
So
it makes the game more fun. Shades of Grey, which is what Greyhawk's supposed to be, in my opinion, is Shades of Grey.
Yes.
That group of orcs, we had a similar thing. Again, I use the evil Felry Forest. There was a group of orcs called the Dazark orcs, and they wanted nothing to do with IUs. They actually tended to worship Luthik, the orc female goddess of home, hearth, and healing. And so we ended up having them form alliances with anti-Iusian elves and things like that in the Bandit Kingdoms. And people could say their PC was from that tribe of orcs. Just small thing. So Tony, can you remind us how you got started in Living Greyhawk? For the audience, Tony is an honorary Triad member. She's the only person I've given this designation to. I'm obviously not the end-all, be-all, final authority for this, but since I host the show, I feel entitled to do that. But Tony's done so much for Highfolk, that's why we have her on here. So Tony,
Tony can go on whatever she wants.
That's right.
And she did have positions. She did do stuff.
Yeah, I just didn't. They asked me 3 times to be a Triad member, and
that's why I've named you honorary Triad member. If they'd only asked you twice, I would be like, piss off, Tony. But 3 times, you're in. You're in the club.
I like it. No, I just wanted to, back then you couldn't continue playing if you were a Triad. You couldn't play in that region, and I was having so much fun that I did not want to give that up. Also, Rick, who is my husband, he used to run a lot. He was in charge of Living City.
Oh wow!
Oh my gosh!
And he was like, "I will divorce you if you do that, because I will never see you."
Because he knew how much.
Like in charge of Living City? Because I don't think I knew this.
Yeah.
After Dancy or before Dancy?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
wasn't he
used
like
to tease him about his magic silver pen? I don't know.
wasn't he like number? I think wasn't he number 2? Didn't he work with Scott?
I didn't play Living City, so I
Yeah.
don't actually know.
We know
So how do you go from not playing Living City to playing Living Greyhawk?
So I had some preconceived notions about what organized play was.
Sure.
I had a whole bunch of friends who played it, and I'm like, they played Living City and stuff, and I'm like, what do you mean you got bunny slippers of speed? That sounds stupid.
Right. It was a Monty Hall campaign.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds lame.
Yeah.
And then Greyhawk came around, and those same friends were like, this is a new campaign. It's, it's supposed to be grittier, more gray, not the same sort of thing. You should try it with me. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And we went, and at the very first game I met Greg, because he was the judge.
Wow. So you guys really have known each other a while.
Good job.
Yeah. So
Astrolayer says yes with Scott when Dancy was involved. Astrolayer says Astrolier. Did I say that right? With my South Jersey accent?
That looks like Astro Liar to me.
Or you could just call
Hey,
him
Garner.
Jeremy.
Oh, it's Jeremy.
Well, very, very cool, Tony.
It's Jeremy Vosberg, who's written a lot.
Oh,
of
yeah. Okay, cool.
For organized play.
Awesome. Great to see you again. So, we know, by the way, Ed Greenwood said he created Living City, by the way. Remember, he said that the other night, right, Anna?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Nice.
surprised on that. So,
They probably didn't pay him for that
was
either.
Fun. So, and then I decided to go to that. I just played that one, and then I decided to go to a con, which I'd never gone to. And I was like, all right, let's do this thing. And, I was playing with my friends, and they had an interactive, and they had this where they kidnapped everybody's familiars to get them to do what they wanted.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I love that.
And
That's a new take. Cool.
yeah, it was pretty good, actually. And
Oh,
to
it was
make
better.
sure that everybody did, he randomly drew out of a bag one person's familiar and disintegrated it. It was mine.
Oh! What was it?
It was a raven.
Oh, okay. It wasn't something really cute.
But it was, and I was like, that was awesome. Like, I was like, holy buckets, this place.
Dark. That's hilarious. Like in 5e, players would be like, "What's the big deal? I'll just recast the spell and get the familiar back." But in 3rd edition, there was a whole rigmarole, right? If your familiar died, you lost hit points and other bad things, and it's it was a bigger deal. Especially that would have been 3.0 in year 1 as well. That wouldn't even have been 3.5. So that's awesome.
So,
and then you got to a point where you were assisting as a meta org person or an author?
Both.
Like pretty simultaneously?
Yeah.
I'm guessing you probably helped write what we would call meta regional or meta org adventures or intro adventures, maybe? Or did you just go right into
all of that? So I had 2 actual intros. I wrote a couple I use mods. I wrote a handful of interactives, a handful of actual Highfolk mods. I did. I was in charge of some of the meta org stuff. So, like, if I was in charge of the special missions, that was a thing where people could petition to have like a unique adventure for like some purpose. Like, hey, I need access to this prestige class, or I would like to, save my sister from Ius or whatever. So, wrote a lot of those.
And the special missions were incredibly rare.
Yeah. How'd you go from your first con to then writing stuff for it? So
just dove right in. I was just in. After they killed my familiar, I was like, this is cool.
So great.
I'm gonna kill other people's familiars.
I'm like, this is awesome. I love this. I'm in.
That's how you.
That's a
recruit.
great attitude
Yep.
because some of the players who came from other campaigns or weren't used to a dark, gritty campaign, you would see grown people, and I like to make fun of them, grown ass men crying when their PC or familiar got killed. But nowadays we shouldn't make fun of them. Everyone's allowed to have their feelings. But back then, I don't think we were quite as advanced emotionally
Broke
as
my
maybe.
magic sword.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
And
people would
like-
get very upset, but yeah, they wouldn't expect that kind of level of harshness. And the I use meta region, I think some of us, we took it to that point where you should die. Characters should die, make the world scary,
Yeah.
Or get strapped to a tower and get regenerated constantly.
and get eaten alive. Yeah, by a demon over and over and over again.
Gosh.
Like, he just
Hell, I
needs
killed a
bugs.
character with
What are you
hail
talking about?
one time.
Hail? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
they were walking towards Dorica, and there's a random bad weather chart in the adventure. It was one of the I use meta regionals where you're approaching Dorica.
It's like
And,
baseball-sized hail.
Baseball-sized hail. She was like a
Mhm.
second level halfling, and she took like
Oh.
6d6 hail damage or something like that, and it just straight killed her.
that's just,
Greg killed me once with a quasit or whatever that had ninja throwing stars and was invisible.
critical hit you and killed you?
Oh.
Oh no, it had like 10 attacks or something insane.
It
No,
was it was like a rogue, assassin, sorcerer using the fire shuriken spell. Oh, it was like also master thrower. This was back in the day when you like would just stack stuff on
Stack
top of
stuff,
each
yeah.
other.
You
And it
had
would-
to.
Yeah, you had to, but it had I believe it actually had like 16 attacks around, and each shuriken hit for 1 point,
Right.
and then plus like 6d6 sneak and 4d10 fire.
Right. Because you got multiple sneak dice damage,
Right.
unlike 5e, where it's just once. Yeah.
Carleva Nightwater says, wasn't it invisible too?
It was. Oh, of course. That's why
was.
you always had sneak. Yeah.
Greater invisibility.
That's great.
Third edition had some wonky, and there was an arms race. I know this is getting away from Highfolk, but there was an absolute arms race because the players were getting access to splat books left and right, which the 3.x prestige classes, some of them were pretty broken. As you've heard me bitch about, like the Radiant Servant of Palor on the show before, and
Mhm.
the Fate Spinner in particular was very
yeah.
broken.
But you would just use it against them.
Oh yeah,
So,
that
I mean, we
anticipate
would-
teleport spell.
Yeah. I regularly, whenever someone would break an adventure, go, I'd love to see your character. And they would be like, oh no, I'm gonna get audited. I'm like, no, I'm just writing down your build. Because the
Yeah.
next NPC will be you.
Right.
Like I will just use this build against you next time.
That
Yeah,
sounds
absolutely. So
awesome. You gotta love when you use stuff against, put players up against something that's leveled up right there. That's
yeah, I mean it should be a fair fight, so that's what makes people mad. Like if you put up six level PCs against six level NPCs who aren't built weekly. Third edition wanted you to build weak NPCs. They had worse stats, they had worse gear. But if you just made it equal, that should be a 50-50 fight, and people should run away because half your party would die. But that's a whole nother topic. Let's dive into the meta orgs.
1 sec.
Tony and Greg. Oh,
1 sec.
okay.
We had a massive hype train. So, what's the giveaway tonight? Everyone's asking. If you've seen on posts, William Henry Dvorak Giant Stop has a new adventure out.
Oh yeah?
Aha. Heroes of a Dark Past. I believe this takes place in what forest, Anna?
I don't know.
It's either Felreave or what's the other one?
Well, he's a BK. The Tangles is also
yeah,
in the
Tangles,
Bandit
the
Kingdom.
the other
Felreave,
one. He
so
said
the
not
big
the
one.
Tangles, but the other one, I think.
But
Felreave.
the Felreave then.
Fostwood.
Yeah.
That's
Felreave
it.
is-
Fostwood.
It's got a. Oh, the Fostwood is over by Dimray
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fostwood.
in the
Thank you,
county of
Troy.
Ernst and the Pale.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're going to give away 2 of these in PDF, and then he's also going to, now that they're back in and available, hard copy of his Raven's Rook, which is Rook Roost, right? Book, a hard copy, so you get your choice. So we got 3 giveaways tonight, 2 of these and 1 of these, all right? And that's in hard copy. The 2 Echoes of Dark Past adventure are in PDF, all right? And that's tripling that up from the original giveaway because of the massive hype train. Thank you so very much. All right.
Well, Jay, how big was the hype train? Did they hit-
Level 5. We crossed level 5 into level 6.
What's the highest level?
There is no highest level.
Oh, it can just keep going.
One.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen one past 5.
No, I've had a 12.
You've had a 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I had 12.
Well, if we hit 5, I could throw in one of these.
We did hit 5.
No, well, I mean, since we hit 5,
All right, you want to throw one of them too? All
I
right,
could
there you
throw one
go.
of
So we
these
got 4
things in.
giveaways. We got 4 giveaways. That's awesome. That is fantastic. Very cool. There you go. So we have 4 giveaways now. Wonderful. Keep it going, Casey. As we.
So let's dive into the meta orgs. I've got the meta orgs document you guys were kind enough to share with me. I know Jay does too.
Yeah, and Anna and
What-
Mike have it too. Everyone has it.
So
We go
just
here?
jump in, to tell everyone real quick. Meta orgs were organizations your PC could belong to help tie them to your region's plots, and to your comrades who might be playing a similar character. Why don't you guys just kind of take us through the main meta orgs of the Highfolks and how they came to be and what their importance was, and if they came from canon.
There was a
Sure.
lot of them. We had a lot.
And some came and went. So that was
Yes.
also so the version I sent you was, I think, one of the more recent books, and by that time
2000.
some of the meta orgs had gone away,
Okay.
had
Yeah.
been destroyed in the process of things, and then some other ones came after this, because I see at least 2 that aren't in there.
Okay.
But it's a good pile. I don't know, Tony, what was your favorite? You tell me one.
I mean, there were some pretty entertaining ones. Elven Clans, they were all fighting each other, so there's like a million
Really?
of those. Yes. It was very okay. I had somebody, I was trying to describe what Living Greyhawk was, and they said it sounded like a Mexican soap opera with elves.
That's great.
That's not wildly far off.
Right. I was like, oh.
I would say if you mixed a Mexican soap opera with elves and a little Game of Thrones, it was probably there.
So
we had
Okay.
obviously Shandareth is the canon leaders of the clans, and they still were.
Okay.
And then there were still 5 major clans, the ones that had votes when the king would pass things off down to the houses to decide. They were the ones who got to vote. And then there were a half dozen or so other clans that were either clients of the others, or they were so small and there were remnants of them. A lot of them had been ones that were mostly wiped out by Ayus. So they were the clans were probably one of the biggest drivers of our plots. And since probably at least a third to half of the players were playing elves or half elves,
Wow.
like it was by far the largest of all the meta orgs.
So easy.
I'm going to give you all a big thumbs up here. And why? You have Sylvan Elf, High Elf, and Grey Elf clans here.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's cool. So it's all the elven races or subsects that. I don't see a Greyhawk one in here, but I don't know if
There's a reason.
Okay.
There's a reason. The Greyhawk, at first, I guess it's been 20 years. We can spoil plot, huh?
Yes.
And you can.
It appeared that they had sided with Ayus at the beginning.
Okay.
That they had something had happened and they had switched sides, and no one really knew because there wasn't huge contact with them. It actually had turned out that the majority of them had been wiped out and animated, and then illusions had been placed over them so that they looked like it was still them.
Wow.
That actually started an almost meme in our region called "Them Elves, They're Biters."
They're biters.
Because the Grugach would run up to you with swords and bows and then drop them and claw bite
And bite you.
and
Yeah.
paralyze you because they were ghouls.
Yes.
They were ghouls with some
Yeah.
sort of permanent illusion on them, huh?
Correct. And
Right.
people were like, they're biting
terrifying.
me. And we remember there was a prestige class called Wild Runner that gave you a bite. And we're like, oh yeah, they're just
Right.
wild runners.
That was from the
Nice.
3.0 Brown Book, maybe?
Yeah, from Masters of the Wild.
Masters of the Wild, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it took a long time to basically rescue the survivors and uncover that the clans that you thought were just evil elves that had betrayed everyone were actually had all been turned into undead.
Was there a specific Iusian responsible for that? Like one of the bone hearts in particular,
Zenvaline,
can
I
you
bet.
recall?
I actually think that had been done with the so not one of the Iusians at first. It was actually originally done by that one we had called the Backloonish Man.
Okay.
When it was part of his plot to get on the inside with Ius so that he
Ah,
could basically stop him.
Nice.
And it made him be a minion of, well, we had a couple of bone hearts that did stuff in our region.
Mhm.
yeah.
Trying to remember who he was originally working for. But I don't. It's been too long.
I remember Zenvaline was in the southern Vestvi border where the raising line was, and was always doing stuff there. And then
I'm going to
had the
guess
one-
Pan Shazek.
Yeah, that actually seems. I think it was Pan
Panchazek the
Ben
Vile.
Ishak. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I got to ask this. This is kind of cool. Clan Valmirath, 1% human. So they let a human in here. It looks like.
Yep. So Valmirath is actually a clan created by Jason Bullman.
Oh.
And
Clan Cthulhu.
yeah,
Oh.
they were the wizards who dealt with Cthulhu-ish stuff. But more importantly, they were set up pretty early to appear to be like perhaps the most evil of the clans, or not evil, but you thought that they were up to badness.
Mhm.
It actually turns out that their clan leader, that she basically knew many of the secrets, and people called her the Iron Spider. And she was actually, when it all came down at the end of the 8th year, she was one of the main people who, if she wasn't on your side, like everybody suddenly realized that all of those horrible things she was making us do was to set us up for 8 years later when we were going to need her, because she had been talking to things beyond space and time and getting info.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Almost
She
like
had magic cookies, but
Oh yeah, the cookies that you had to roll when you ate them.
Yeah.
And number 6, if you rule a d6, was the cookie animates, grows tentacles, crawls up your arm, and forces you to eat it.
yeah.
Wow.
And I believe it then said something like, it tastes like oatmeal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that here in the meta org book? So
It was on your clan cert.
on the adventure record
Yeah.
or cert for
Yeah.
it? Cool.
Some of these clan names are from the gnarly as well, it looks like, correct?
Some of them might have been. Yeah, we might have shared
Chandra,
clans
I
that
think
moved.
it's, yeah. All right, that's cool. I mean, I love this. In fact, I may even bring this in to my game a little bit, having those clan names.
If it makes you, if it's helpful, Aranadel is the clan that sided with the Emerald Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah, they ended up, and we ended up actually having an interactive where it was basically Aranadel and everyone who decided to follow the Emerald Dawn as the best chance to beat Ayus. And then everybody else who was like, but she's evil. And we did have an interactive that was one side versus the other of
Yep.
PCs.
PC versus PC interactive.
Yep.
That takes some doing, because Living Greyhawk really wanted to avoid that, and quite frankly, gamers weren't necessarily very adult. There could be a lot of ego contests.
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
We were also the region with the so we had a group of thieves. I guess it was technically a thieves guild that believed the ends justify the means. And we got the circle to let us, if you joined the Blood Owls, and it was very hard to join, you could become a certed assassin. You became evil and got the assassin prestige class.
And got retired from the campaign.
And you immediately got retired from the campaign and could only play your character as a DM in our interactives.
Oh, that's neat.
Oh, that's
So
a
then-
neat little, okay.
Then you
that get to
became
do that as an
wandering
NPC.
NPCs. Yep.
Right. I was about to suggest maybe if they wrote an adventure and their, retired character was an NPC in it, which we did a little bit in the BK, but not much,
Yeah.
to honor people whose characters had left a really good mark on the region. So the Blood Owls are on page 42 of your campaign book. And this is a nice little short synopsis because it's invitation only.
Yep. You had to meet requirements that they didn't share, and you had to do very specific things in adventures or interactives. And then you could also, if none of those happened, you could always petition for a special mission. And it would be granted if you actually met the requirements. If it wasn't, you were just told no.
I'm jealous now because as much as we push the envelope in the BK, we never said, hey, people, become assassins and retire your character, which should have been a thing in the BK. That's an amazing, awesome
well, it
idea.
came out of, remember the original 7 certs? So every triad got to create 7 unique certs. And our 7th was a certed assassin that was going to be in the campaign.
That predates me. Cool.
And then we changed that in the end. We said, can we give back the cert and let the meta org let you retire your character? And truthfully, the circle was like, oh, you want to not give away certed assassins?
Right.
Go for it. We love that idea.
Cool.
If you feel you might be worthy of an invitation, please contact the meta representative.
And right below that one, Tony, is the Dragon Disciples. So not only did you have a character Dragon Disciple, but you probably helped found that meta org, it looks like.
Yeah, coordinators, Tony.
Well, there was a lot of dragons in Highfolk, and they were all working against each other. And so you couldn't, it was a prestige class that you had to have a special certificate. You couldn't just take. So if you wanted to do that, you had to go through, and I had to do an adventure for you, depending on the dragon. and you didn't get to pick your dragon.
Oh, really?
Nope.
And we didn't tell people what requirement there was on your character that chose the dragon for you.
Yep.
Nice.
Sure.
So
they couldn't build a PC for it.
Yep, you can't build towards it. If you were, for example, an elf, Tony, what color are you?
Automatically green.
Because she had all the elves.
Yeah, she would subvert. If you had any other heritage, she would subvert it and twist it so that it was green.
Yep. And if you were a gnome or a dwarf, do you remember the color?
It was copper, right?
Copper. That was the youngest. That was the young copper.
Yep.
And then they were split between the red, who was the second oldest, and the silver, who was like a young adult. The silver favored humans and casters. The silver actually was interesting because about halfway through the campaign, a number of characters, their familiars were being smarter than they were. Like they were making poor choices.
Yeah.
And some of the players had this joke about, it's almost like there should be a familiar mafia. Like the familiar should secretly be running things. So we wrote that into the campaign. The silver started contacting everyone's familiars, not telling the characters. And then you would have an adventure, and if you had a familiar, you would get a handout. Your familiar would tell you, hey, boss, I happened to see this thing. We should go this way, which was the way the silver wanted you to go.
That's very cool. I like the involvement of the dragons because we've done these shows with like all the U.S. regions, most of Canada, etc. And a lot of them have, quite frankly, just said, meh, we had like a dragon, the PCs fought it and killed it, and it didn't really matter. And I'm just sitting here going like, no, they should be the big bad. The damn game is called Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But so that's really neat to hear you had all this involvement. I think in the BK, you had to be chaotic neutral, and you could only be a red dragon
you had
disciple.
Morgenstern.
Yeah, Morgenstaller.
Yeah.
We might have allowed green because we had the two big green. Well, we had a very big green dragon, and then we had her daughter. And the daughter went from lawful evil to lawful neutral as a result of PC actions and things like that. We had a topaz dragon at an interactive that got fought and not killed, but that was kind of a throwaway. That was a Theo Judd idea for an interactive. But other than that, we didn't really, we had the three. Oh, we had a yellow. The red and the green had a baby and made a yellow dragon. But yeah, Morgenstaller's not a good daddy, as one could imagine. Yeah. So anyway, very cool. How many dragon disciples do you think you guys had running around at any given?
Not very many.
A dozen?
Maybe.
That's a ton.
Well, so here was part of it. So you didn't get to pick a dragon.
Right.
And then the first person to pass their test of each color, we said was their kid, like direct descendant, so that they could have that coolness.
Oh, cool.
And then,
That's
but
awesome.
like certain people was way more deadly than others.
Mm.
So like the
Mhm.
green and the red, you don't make their test, you're eaten.
Sure.
They would test you.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So, but you know, if you failed with the, you know, one of the good dragons, they just would shoot you on your way, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
And see,
I
dragon-
We had
killed a couple people, honestly. I felt bad, but
and our region had previously a black that was in the defiled glades that died when I was invaded. So there was that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Was anyone but Ben Seekert ever a black? I think he petitioned a special mission actually from another triad to become a black.
yeah, I think he was. There was no blacks.
Yeah, because I
He
think
was
he did
dead.
it elsewhere.
Yeah, beforehand. So
It's interesting. So, how many players do you think you had in Highfolk in its entirety?
Oh,
there was a lot.
thousands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
It was huge. There
I
was
mean,
a
you
lot.
had a
region,
dense
that-
population in. Tell us the states again for Highfolk.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Just Wisconsin.
Just Wisconsin.
Well,
But you
because
had
it was
people who could
based-
travel from Chicago, Cleveland,
Yep.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
There were
et
not a
cetera.
lot of regions that were single states.
Right.
That's true.
It was based on RPGA play numbers. And since the
Ah.
RPGA being centered in Wisconsin originally, we have the biggest play numbers of any state, and we were our own region. Was anyone else a single state? Valuna? Was just Ohio, right?
Well, hang on. I've got my
Was
list.
Riverbank just Illinois?
No, they were Indiana and Illinois.
Right,
Okay.
they were two. All right, hang on.
And then
Regions
the
and
Shieldland
states.
was more than one, right?
Yeah, it was the
Right.
Dakotas and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Valuna, Ohio. Right, I
Yep.
think you said that.
Yep.
Furiandi was Michigan.
Oh, yeah,
Highfolk was
Furiandi.
Wisconsin. The rest are European countries
Yeah.
who were, their own thing. And Texas was close. Or Texas and Oklahoma, two states
Yeah.
for the BK. Of course, that's like
Radix.
half the U.S.
Hawaii. Hawaii was its own state by virtue of being all alone in the Pacific. I'm pretty sure they
Hawaii was actually tied to all the other Pacific Rim
Oh, really?
countries, I believe, when it was Pearland or not Ket. What's the one I'm thinking of? That it Zeif for a little bit. No, I'm gonna have to
Was
search
Zeef-
my damn.
Canada was Zeef, remember? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was
Canada was all the Backlunish countries.
Hang on.
Tusmet, Ket.
Nyrond had Hawaii from 2004 to 2006 incorporated, and Radic had Hawaii at the start of the campaign until February of 2004.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But then they added it. They gave it back to Radic in 2006, but with Japan and parts of Australia.
Yeah.
So just obscure trivia there for the regions.
Yeah. Where was Florida? Which was Florida? It's so much.
Florida was Ulick, Principality of Ulick, right?
That's right.
Yep.
We can't have them on.
Florida and Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And we haven't had them on yet. We can't find anyone from that region to make any inroads with. I think that's the last American region we need to get on the show.
Hmm.
I've been in touch with Stephen Conforti of the Cheldamar Valley, hoping that former Circle members will have, the best contact info. And I'm trying to get him on a show to do the Living Greyhawk Deities document,
Oh,
and how
cool.
that came to
Yep.
be.
Mhm.
So if you have any ability to put pressure on Conforti, please do it. Those of you out in the audience, tell him, that Casey said he's got to be on. And he knows this because I bug him once a month
Yeah.
when
It's
you
a
coming
great
on, when you coming
document.
on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great document with tons of stuff.
That's one of the most useful Greyhawk things of all time besides the Zavoda Index.
Do we have a link to where we can find it these days, or is it available somewhere?
To what?
Living Greyhawk Deities document. I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess if people Googled it, I don't think it's one of those things
Yeah.
that gets you in trouble for sharing because it was campaign wide, and
Okay, then we'll see if we can. If I can find it here.
it's not
somewhere.
like
Yeah.
the adventures, but we're sharing them as technically a copyright infringement.
Right. Because we've had multiple requests for this in chat already, and I said, got to contact Greg and whoever, and because I don't want to.
We think legally these meta-org documents are in the clear.
Okay.
It's just
The
we can't
meta-org
sell them.
documents are definitely the property of the Triad members at the time.
Because they're fan creations.
Because they're
Unpaid.
fan creations.
Yeah, I just want,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want
They're unpaid fan creations.
I have the here's a link for the deity. Oh, you okay? Good. Katana found it already. So, yep.
Hey,
Yeah.
Modesto. Thank you very
But the
much.
adventures themselves is the big no-no. I had a
Thank you.
gentleman reach out to me an email the other day asking me for some adventures, and I just was like, "Sorry, dude, that's a copyright violation." It's
those
just
are,
like
those are owned.
Yeah, because
Right.
those are owned by the authors, right? At that point, still.
Well, it depends on which one it was. So
year 3 and later regionals did not get paid.
right.
Yes.
Those are owned by the authors. The ones before that got paid, and copyright is for Wizards.
Right. And then
got
the meta
paid
regionals, and I forget, the cores are all
Cores were
owned by
paid.
Wizards.
Scores were
Yeah.
paid.
So yeah, it's a whole hot mess, and that's my whole conspiracy theory about why we don't see anything in Greyhawk is because if they publish anything that isn't something they've already published in the past, Ghosts of Saltmarsh is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
That's all older adventurers and Dragon Magazine stuff, whatever, Dungeon Magazine. They'll step on a landmine and someone will come out and say, well, my year 4 Highfolk Living Greyhawk adventure had X, Y, and Z, and you just stole my idea. Where are my royalties? And there's so many hundreds and thousands of Living Greyhawk adventures
And that can happen too.
that didn't get paid for, and that was their idiocy. They should have paid mod authors, and they should have charged, like Pathfinder Society has a small fee to pay, right, to play. And I don't know about D&D AL. That's its own business entity where you sell the adventures, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The adventure
Anyway,
is sold, and so you just
The
Right.
adventures are what cost money.
Right, exactly. So there's a whole bunch of things that they've learned, hopefully, in the past 20 years, but it's a hot mess. That's a whole different topic. We could do a whole nother show on that. And Greg, we do need to do a D&D AL show and other, how you go from Greyhawk to professional gaming. Sean Merwin and Ron Lundeen and Eric Mona and Tony, you freelancing, right? And who else I'm forgetting?
Tio
Mike Burrows,
Sabadeo.
obviously a big one.
Sure.
Who'd you say? Chris
Dark Maggie.
Tulloch.
Yeah, Teos Abadeo.
Yeah,
Teos,
Teos
yeah.
and
Teos,
Menge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That I've been talking about wanting to do this show for years, so we just need to
That's
to
a
do it.
great
We
one.
need to get
Yeah.
a bunch of WotC people on.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Greg, make it
I
happen.
don't think it's the right day for that right now.
I know, Anna. I know.
Yeah.
I was being
We should
smart 'cause
probably
what
wait
happened-
and see.
Tell them
exactly.
we won't ask them
Yeah.
any Magic the Gathering Pinkerton questions if they come
Exactly,
on to
we
our
should-
show.
we
a lot
should
of the
stay out of
Wizards
the
folks are
pick
still
it.
big Greyhawk fans. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah,
sure.
pick it.
I've,
They might
Yeah.
come and take our books.
we won't say a name, but I've asked someone particular like 7 times, and it's not. I can't yet. So
This week it will definitely not happen.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
so,
Maybe there's something we can do, like at a Gen Con in the future, if we're all there, and Jay can throw up a camera and we can just have a live round table where we just shoot the shit.
Yep.
But anyway, so back to the meta orgs.
So
So
yeah. By the way, anyone who just rated in, we have 3 giveaways tonight. 2 in PDF, a brand new adventure by William Henry Dvorak and his Raven's Rook in hard copy. Also, so we got some really great stuff tonight. I love this. We got some great meta orgs here. Really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to ask about the general organizations here. You got a Bard at College, 5th
Yeah.
District of Highfolk Town Militia. That's cool. Guildsmen of Higher Art, Helping Hands of Alana. Is not Rangers? Is that more clerical, or is that like thieves?
That's more clerical.
Clerical,
That's
and then
clerical.
the
Cool.
Rangers of SV.
Now, to be a helping hand, you didn't have to be a cleric.
Okay.
So, but it was probably most common among the clerics.
Sure.
It was basically because the Church of Alona had so much to do with our region, right? Like it was a big part of it. And I think they mention if you want to join, you have to be able to cast divine spells. So there were rangers, there were druids, there were, anyone who could cast a divine spell. Didn't matter what race or level, but you had to be good, and you had to do it in Qualston, if I remember right.
Okay.
So I see that the helping your hands of Alona were not in here.
No, of Palor.
Right? Oh yeah.
So,
helping your hands of Palor. That's right.
There were some characters originally. The first player I think that started it was from Bissell, but some that had Palerites, which is not a big religion in our region.
Mm,
So they were playing characters that were from like, oh, we moved here from Furiandi, or we moved here from, whatever.
right.
And they were like, well, we want to do the same charity stuff the Alonites do. And they're the Alonans. And they were like, well, you can't join. So they formed the Helpinger Hands of Palor, which became a group in season 6 or 7.
I don't remember, but it was funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
cutie.
basically like a carbon copy, but everything in the group was like, we do charity, but more charity than the Alonans.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we
Of
do,
course.
They were
yeah.
like, we're
Palerites are definitely the holier than thous of Greyhawk,
yeah.
right? I can
Almost
agree with
not quite
that.
as much as the Fultons, but yeah.
Well, the Fultons are just super obnoxious about it.
Yeah.
No.
But
Yeah. So it says
sorry,
here
go ahead,
that
Jack.
the Helping Hands get along with almost everyone, but and work with the Rangers, work with the Knights of the High Forest. Even I saw earlier, you guys estimated there's 45 Knights of the High Forest, which is a high number compared to original first edition. They said about 24, right? So
I think it's because we added the player characters on top of the 24.
Yeah.
Right.
all right, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to ask a really obscure question here, Greg. Do you have a list of the knights?
Not anymore.
Man.
If I were to dig through old hard drives that I still have,
Okay.
maybe.
If you
But
come across it one day, I'd love to add, because I have a listing of about 8 of them in my campaign. So more is always
Nice.
better. Yeah. All right.
I know that our first one died. So the
I have
first
I have
one-
some names because my character was in that meta org.
Really? Okay, Tony, I can harass
Yeah,
you.
she got kicked out.
I
They
have-
were racist. They found out she was half green dragon and didn't like that.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, wow. So they threw you out for that.
Yeah.
But you were of good alignment, right?
At that point, I was neutral at that
No,
point.
yeah, you were
Oh.
neutral by then.
Okay.
She had the slow slide down. That did not help, by the way.
No, I can imagine not being part of that illustrious.
But I
name.
could
I mean,
probably get you some names at least.
That'd be
After
great.
at tier 5, all the high level characters retired, and many of them retired into story. Tony's characters actually became one of the main villains.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you start
Very
a new
cool.
character up, or did you continue to play that character?
I played that character in interactives, and when they needed it. Otherwise, I had a new character
Okay.
who hated my character.
Yep. I like that you were enemies with yourself.
Yeah, it's always, guys. It's always cool to have that, go in, and that creates a living, breathing campaign.
Right. Living.
That's it. That's it.
And it's the oldest D&D trope. The original creators, Gygax,
All
etc.
the characters are
The Wizards 3, the people you just had on, Jim Ward was Dromid, right? It's an NPC, Ed is Elminster.
Rob Kuntz was
Rogalar?
and Otto.
Oh, and
yeah.
Otto.
And
Mortal.
Otto.
To me, that's a part of the
Uh-huh.
campaign is the PCs become the heroes and the villains and the big movers and shakers of the game.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really cool.
And we did a little bit of that, in the BK. With Patrick Brown had the Baron. He was a cleric of Ralashaz who was just notorious as a player and a character in the region, and he got retired and became an NPC. What's that one?
It's the search for the Knight of the High Forest.
Oh, you found it.
And you
Oh,
kept
yes,
it.
I have my character binder. I still have it,
That's
so
great.
it was on the thing back here. But yeah, and then here's the conditional. If they ever find out that you're half green dragon, they hate you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which another player character ratted me out, who was my friend.
Oh,
Oh,
Well,
Damn, no.
friend,
Yeah,
great.
friend.
we had
Friend,
a
yeah.
strong history because we had those fighting groups
Mhm.
of player characters joining groups that they did not believe in to be spies. That was a
Wow.
very common situation where people would meet requirements and like, I'm going to join, the Guildsmen of the High Art, the Wizards Guild, because I really want to rat them out to this other meta org.
There was a lot of like, it was very much behind the scenes shady, like, but it was fun. And everybody, you kind of knew that. So nobody was like, it wasn't unexpected or nobody got too upset about it.
And people would always find ways to make it work. Like a former Triad member, Andrea Polinsky, was one of our Triad members for Highfolk. And she had a longtime character when she started playing again after she stopped being a Triad member that was trying to be a Knight of the High Forest. And at one of our, we had a 3-day interactive con. Like it was an interactive that went for 3 solid days. And she had a special mission there to become a Knight of the High Forest. And another character basically screwed her because didn't like the Knights of the High Forest. And so she ended up coming up with a way, making a political deal with the dwarves of Dargus Moor, which were this like lost tribe of dwarves that were related to the Hammerstrike clan in our region. And basically, because she was of semi-royalty, she was one of the royalty of one of the small clans. She married the dwarf ambassador on a political marriage solely because he had the pull to get her into the Knights. So she became an ambassador for the dwarves as a full-blooded elf, and at the same time, a Knight of the High Forest.
So there's a lot of intrigue and subterfuge going on between
Tons.
even
There's a lot.
friends, Tony.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
What I love is that you guys weren't just like, hey, we're all a bunch of elves. Ayuz is invading our region. We should just have a pretty homogenous, we're fighting Ayuz plot arc. Because in my brain, that's what I would have imagined for Highfolk after reading Ayuz the Evil, etc. But instead, you had all these intricate plots weaving in and out of each other with the elven families and clans and these meta orgs. I just think that's really brilliant. I found my adventure record from the one time I got to play in Highfolk. It was year 5, all good things.
Oh, that was Greg's.
I wrote that.
No, one of
to be
Greg's?
fair, I wrote like three or 4 adventures a year, but yeah.
He wrote a lot.
What character played in it, Case?
Apparently my elf from the Felry Forest, Brianna Windstrider, as I called her. That was her human name. May 22nd, 2005 at Genericon. That was the event name you gave it. For when the Triads were visiting. We did APL 12. This adventure, people, covered APLs 6 to 16. That's insane. You had 6 different encounters, tiers.
And it had an extended play.
And I played the extended play as well.
So it was an 8-hour adventure instead of a 4-hour adventure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very cool. Some of the magic items on here, which I did not gain access to. The shirt of the Vesvi, a magical shirt embroidered with the heraldry of Highfolk. You can show your t-shirt probably better than I can, Greg. And the holy symbol of Elona, the wearer of the shirt gets a +1 sacred bonus to armor class. So that's very rare in 3rd edition.
Yeah.
And a shirt you would wear under your armor, so it would stack with your armor. It only costs 5,600 gold pieces. Worshippers of Elona receive a +2 competence bonus to handle animal, knowledge, nature, and survival checks while in the Vesvi Forest. So that's a neat little regional magic item that sounds like you guys created or adapted, maybe from Greyhawk Adventures or some other sort.
I think I created it.
Yeah,
the best of my memory.
So that's pretty cool. I didn't get access to that. She would have loved to have that shirt, this particular PC. So
you probably had to do really good things, which
she was good, but our group, who knows? Who knows? What's funny looking at this is this one's dated like May 22nd, and I have adventure records from like 3 days before and 3 days after in Texas. I was playing all the time.
How did you get up there?
Then. I flew up there.
You played in Texas, flew up there, played up there, and then flew back and played in Texas again?
3 days later. So May 15th, I'm playing some core adventure in Texas. And then I go up to Wisconsin in May 22nd. I played with them. So I guess that's a week. And then May 24th, I'm back in Clear Lake outside of Houston playing a core adventure. So, I flew up there because Chris Tulloch was the Ayuz Meta Regional Coordinator. and he wanted to play test his newest I use mod, which I can't remember which one it is at this point. And plus, he wanted to meet the Triads in person. Not all of us were making it to Gen Con or other events. So Wizards of the Coast gave him a budget to fly one Triad member from each region that was far away for IUs to this event, including, hotel room. And we just gamed and play tested and got to meet each other and have a good old time. It was one of my best memories from living Greyhawk.
And my mic was low to my mouth, so yep. Back when Watsy was good aligned, Scottish Jeff says.
Oof.
Someone else said that I didn't. So yep. All right. Well, that's so much going on. There was a lot of great stuff. So when you had a con,
there was a lot.
When you had a con, where was it normally?
Probably at that same hotel that Casey played at.
Madison.
Okay.
Milwaukee.
Oh, usually
Milwaukee.
most of them were Milwaukee.
Okay. Yeah.
But not all. We had some in Lacrosse, one or two that occasionally happened in Madison or Green Bay. And there was one that we did a cross con with Shieldlands.
You did two of those.
Two of those? Yeah.
Two. Yep.
They had a deal that if you partnered with another region, if you ran the con within like 10 miles of your region's borders, you could write an adventure that took place and was a regional for both.
Yep.
And since we were next to the Shieldlands, and obviously Highfolk and Shieldlands share, the common enemy, we did a lot of stuff with them.
Okay.
They did. He's not going to toot his own horn, but those interactives, you had to sign up ahead of time. He had a limited number, and he basically did a unique interactive for each and every person. Each and every person got their own unique cert. Each and every person had their own, here's your goals, and here's what you're trying to, like, your meta org asked you to do whatever for, I don't know, 60, I don't know how many people
80.
it was.
They were 80 because we did 10 tables.
And they were all working like all over the place, and it was the most fun I've ever had.
I'm surprised you don't have a job at like Star Wars Land at Disney World doing that, interactive experience they have down there. You're describing something that sounds a lot like what the Jeff guys did, but slightly different. And I think that's really cool that you had that level of depth and creativity.
Yeah.
What the hell were you doing for back then? You were a student or what?
I think I was probably in grad school when we did all of those conflict in the Vesfies.
Yeah.
Grad school's the best time to be a living Greyhawk Triad member.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like it should be busy.
Doc Shoulder asks a question. There's not Discord. There's not. Is it all email coordination? Phone?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all phone, email,
Yahoo groups.
some in-person Yahoo groups.
Okay, chat groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Yahoo groups were pretty huge. They actually had an official Living Greyhawk Yahoo group that was run. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was out of Ohio or somewhere. And you had a 3 posts per day limit on that group, and the various circle members would answer questions, and they would release official errata on this thing. And it was just kind of silly that you had to actually monitor your regional website and this Yahoo group, because they might come out and say, hey, there's a typo on that cert we released. It really shouldn't be a +3 sword. It should be a +1 or whatever. It's kind of one of those things. It was pre-digital. How do you fix errors like that, when they get out the door? It was volunteer, right? We weren't getting paid unless you were a circle member. Mistakes happen, but it was a lot of people on the Yahoo group. And Regions, BK had a Yahoo group. I'm sure Highfolk had a Yahoo group.
I think we had three or four.
Wow.
Oh, right, well, we had some in-character ones, meta-org ones.
And then like the announcement ones, and
announcement one, con one, the main one, the in-character roleplay one, the Vesfies Tankard, one for every meta org. We actually had dozens now that I think about it.
Yeah. And I created a cross-regional one just for like worshippers of Kellenin, just so that people who were playing Kellenin worshippers anywhere in Living Greyhawk had a place to just ask questions or chat with each other. It was very social, Living Greyhawk.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting back to the docs, I love this. So kind of like I require named adventuring groups because you want to get reputation and all. It looks like that's what you guys did too. You actually set up the adventuring groups for people who are playing at home, I'm assuming.
Oh, or coming to cons as a whole group.
Okay.
we were both Tony and I were members of major groups at one time or another that were like big adventuring companies that did, literally changed the way things happened in the region.
I'm in my binder. We made
probably an infamous group that was really effective, right? And so mod authors would be like, well, I know that group's just going to steamroll, so I need to do better at my encounter design.
The Highfolk mods were really tough. They were always tough.
It's too bad that Jason Bullman couldn't be with us. We had a friendly argument at one point. He was our circle member, would have been yours as well, where he said he complained because I had written an adventure, one of those like 6 to 16 8-hour adventures, and it was 128 pages.
Wow.
And he said that he made a comment about the difficulty of the adventure because there was so much wheels within wheels and complicated combats. And he's like, this is really difficult. And I made the comment, which I do not stand by anymore. But at the time, when I was younger, I said, we don't write for the lowest common denominator. And that was just the kind of thing our region was. And now I realize, we probably way over designed, right? Like, as somebody who's done a lot more freelancing now, there were probably judges who couldn't run the mod, right? Like it was too hard.
Or instigated the arms race with the PCs.
Right.
Which blew up in a lot of our faces when they got access to new shiny toys and things like that. It's kind of weird for me to hear Jason take that tack because Jason wrote the blog post criticizing the Pink Ninja PC builds.
Yeah.
So what does that say about the Highfolk mods when Jason thought they were too hard?
Too hard and too complicated. Of that 128 pages, I guarantee you 116 were stat blocked, right? And the story itself was probably 12.
Like 30 pages because it was an 8-hour adventure. It was like it was called Shattered Reflections of a Frozen Twilight. It was an adventure where you needed something and you could get it from Weejoss herself. So you had to go into Archon and find her.
Oh, was that the adventure where you could go? Because it's a DC 35 will save or die, I think, in her presence.
So if you can ask a thing of her avatar, but if you're a follower of Weejoss, you get the chance to meet her personally. And you're warned that, her presence is the full glory of a god and you might not live.
Yeah.
And so there were definitely characters that were like, it's still worth it. Like I would get to meet my god. And it was a DC 35 wisdom save.
Isn't that ridiculous? I remember that all these years later.
But the best part was, if you died, you didn't just die. You never existed. So all characters forget you. There is no presence of you or impact anywhere. And in fact, one of our friends who died played a character who was a Weejossian. Yeah, who was a Weejossian, and he died, and his other character knew his character. And he would constantly do things like, wow, why do I have this other set of clothes that don't fit me? Or he would constantly throw in these references like this dog that just follows me around. That was his other character's dog.
Oh my gosh.
That was a Highfolk mod, not a meta regional.
That was a meta regional.
Because I played that one, and I think I played it with a character who was like, I can probably make a DC 35 will save. I don't know if the judge let it slip as a warning to us. I hope not, but I remember that number, so I probably looked at the adventure afterwards. But I think I just said, nah, I'm good, because I figured it was a foolish risk. But
we actually had, I went at the premiere, 2 characters who did it at the same table. And one was blotted out of existence, and the other one was a cleric, like a 16th level cleric of Weejoss, who made the save.
Sure. At that level, they probably needed to ask her
too. Yeah.
Wasn't Spotty just sassy to her though?
Oh yeah, no, he also sassed off to her when he walked in. So the fact that he died, he was a wizard, so he had like a +3 will save or something. He had no wisdom. So and that was the only time I ever saw the other character whose player was notably cocky, humble. I think that might be Tony Scalise's the only time he was ever humble about anything, when he saw the other character get blotted out of existence. And his character was the only character that knew the other one ever existed because he was there when it happened.
Wow.
Your friend in the audience, I'm assuming a friend of y'all's, Kabariva Nightwater, I hope I'm saying that correctly, said, and we built characters to survive, then walk through others. That's exactly the problem Living Greyhawk perpetuated with the arms race.
Yep.
We tried to design for middle of the road, but the problem was 3 X encounter design was meant for like 4 PCs, but if you had 5 and 6 encounters, it'd be too easy. But then Living Greyhawk would say, well, if you have 6, you need to add 1 to your average party level, and that might take you up to the next average party level in the adventure. And so sometimes mods can be too hard for people who just built nice, fluffy PCs who were half good at what they could do in combat, and they wanted to role play maybe a lot more than they wanted to fight. And other times you had these groups that came in and were like, I saw a guy in Austin who, as soon as he figured out a monster's armor class, he had the math for maximum average damage per round because he was a WoW player, right? So he knew, I'm going to power attack for 3. I'm going to power attack for 4. I'm going to power attack for 2. And to him, it was a science. How much damage can I do, max? And those groups would just roll through things. And some authors felt the need to challenge them. But when you do that, fluffier groups, I'm just going to use that term, would just have a terrible time. The encounters would be way too hard for them.
And we came up with a sort of solution to that to some extent. In Highfolk, I think it started an adventure called Deep Heart of the Wood. We added not only like a lot of mods had glory tier, like if you want, there is a harder than hard, and it's voluntary, you can do it. But
Nice.
we started sliding in like more granular tweaks for the DM. Like if your group is steamrolling, this is a thing you can add without raising the tier. This is a thing you can do without, changing.
Right. We tried to do environmental. Oh, sorry, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was just to say what Greg said. Yeah, little box things to go in there to just tell, so that not everybody was being crushed if they didn't want that.
Simple things, add the hit points, give circumstance bonuses to hit or whatever. But we would try and do environmental terrain, like take advantage of the terrain when the PCs are really powerful. And I always felt like with our design problems, if you add 1 to the average party level for 6 players, you should subtract 1 for 4 and write the adventures for a group of 5. The fighter, cleric, wizard, rogue with a bard, or some combination of the core classes. And if you could subtract 1 for parties of 4, they would have a lot easier time, because it's a big difference having 5 PCs versus 4. That's 25% more resources, right? So we couldn't do that. But instead, in the Bandit Kingdoms, we created the mercenaries. And tied to meta orgs, you could bring along a mercenary, which was a fully statted out NPC, and it had to be level appropriate for the adventure. And this only happened when you had 4 at the table and none of them had leadership. And that just worked out really well because it helped round out groups who sat down at a con and maybe you had 3 monks, and a bard, because that's who all ended up registering for that game together. But if you're interested in 3.x encounter design, you could read about it in my book, $9.95 on Amazon.
Was it $8.95?
It is, but I like saying $9.95.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially with the 3.5, 3.0 kind of encounter design, a lot of it was just experience and guesswork on some level. Because
there was definitely some of that. And I mean, in Highfolk, we tried to play test as much as we could. We were putting out adventures for 4 or 5 cons a year, and each one had like 2 to 3 adventures and another 3, interactives. So we would try to write early as best we could and play test, but not everything was play tested many, many times, and it was what it was. That was one of the, I guess, drawbacks to the way the system was back then.
Right. But your experience, you guys as authors, you probably learned, okay, if we advance undead, you can do X number of advancements for CR. You could give, giants class levels or whatever it was. We all found our sweet spots. What would be the sweet spot monster in Highfolk?
Characters.
Okay.
There were a
Always
lot of
characters.
retired characters that second arc that were.
Oh yeah, well,
Wow.
and even during things like
Yeah.
just a regular adventure would put something in there that would inevitably turn at least one character against the party, maybe not to murder you, but to like had a conflicting goal that would
Nice.
throw a complication. And so it didn't matter how hard the fight was, because some of you weren't fighting it, or because some of you were doing, that was a thing that was so much a part of our region.
I like this
That-
vagabond groups.
Yep.
Vagabonds were fun.
That vagabond groups were a sort of adventuring company, but it was a thieves guild. It was a player run thieves guild besides the Blood Owls. The person who was in charge of it was the first person who became an assassin.
Oh wow,
You might notice the name looks familiar.
Nathan Winslow.
It's Tony's
That's my
little brother.
Oh,
No.
I got my brother to play.
Yeah.
What's the how much younger is he?
6 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
Nathan
page is
was
that?
pretty young.
37?
Mhm.
Vagabond.
37. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, well, Jay was earlier asking you about the groups, the adventuring parties.
Yep.
And whatnot. So, for the audience, a lot of people played Living Greyhawk who we never met, right? They played in their home groups or at their gaming store, and you never met them. You never heard their stories, and you didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they had Dragon Disciples. Well, for Dragon Disciples, they had to email you, right?
Mhm.
But
Well,
for
yeah, they had
these-
to email me and I had to run them through an adventure.
okay.
They could get it.
But for these adventuring parties, page 29, how many of these did you guys get?
Oh, there's a lot. You could just make one.
Lots. It was because the requirements to join one were so minimal, it was very common for people, especially when they saw the established groups doing things. Because once you had an established company, like during interactives and stuff, they would stand up as a block, right? Like our company, 10 votes to do this thing.
Oh, cool.
They would immediately try to, make deals with the other big companies to make sure outcomes came a certain way. So if you would try to either join one of those, and if you didn't, it was very common for like, hey, I sat down at a table with 6 other guys who've never, played before. We had a great time together. We decided to play another game together. Wow, we're going to go into this interactive, and there's almost always some benefit if you're a company. Well, the 7 of us will make a company. We'll make our own adventuring company right now.
Nice.
Very cool.
And you have patrons here too, so it's like you can tie them into someone.
Right. You can choose one of the other groups, some of which are orgs and some of which are not.
Right. Okay.
And there's lovely little bits of magic item access in here.
Very small.
Living Greyhawk was very strict about magic item access, and there were arcane math rules for us Triad members that said, given to us by the circle, in order to give X, Y, and Z, the players need to give up, A, B, or C, or in some combination. And just looking at this, the Guildsmen of the High Art could get a belt of many pouches. The Church of Alona, they could buy a Fey arrow. I mean, that's from the Arms and Equipment Guide. And the player would have to own that book and have it at the table in order to use that item. So that helped with Wizard sales. And what they spent 2 time units for their adventuring party. So that's 2 play opportunities out of 52. I mean, that's really not much at all to get this great flavor.
Speaking of flavor, fighting schools. This reminds me almost of the Dark Elf D3 fighting schools, right? That they had, the academies. So this is within the clans. Okay. So,
not all of them were clans, but some of them are. Yeah.
Some of them, the Elven fighting schools are clans. Okay. All right. Got it. So
the idea was that each group of people, whether it's there are certain families of some of the clans. So each of the clans are made up of a couple families, and those families, some of them, there's usually at least one that had a unique fighting style. In addition to that, there were a couple of other groups that, like, there was a Furiundian group. We had it's interesting that now that I realize that racism came up several times in our, like, fighting against racism was a theme in our region sometimes, because
Absolutely.
there was in the very first adventure, there's a halfling who constantly is like the butt of jokes and constantly gets put down, and he becomes a minor villain because he basically creates this group of, like, avenging halflings
Halfling
who
police.
go after people who wrong halflings.
Stout
Yeah.
Stump Halfling
A
Mobile
PC?
Swing Militia.
Yep.
Olby
He was
Tipple-
not a PC.
Oh, he was
not
an
a PC.
He was
NPC.
never a
Olby
PC.
Tipple.
Logan Wood.
Yeah,
Okay.
that guy was the worst.
Grindelwolf with the short-tempered joke there.
Yep.
See, I would have thought elves, like in Shadowrun, right, that they're very haughty. They're the racist ones in Shadowrun, right? They're the ones keeping everyone down for thousands of years. And I just kind of imagine in Highfolk, they would be the ones like, you have any orc blood, we're going to
And
kill
that was a big one of the things that we played upon, was this idea of sort of a xenophobia between the different races. Like, the elves were largely in the woods. I mean, there were half elves and whatnot. We had all the gnomes and the dwarves and the halflings over here. The humans had a lot of, like, Furiundian influence, so they were very different, some of them. And then you had, like, the human that were Alonins that were kind of like in the middle, trying to be the peacemakers.
Was she called Elenestra by the elves? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Alona, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy, good to see you. It's been a while.
According to the Gazetteer, Gary Holian, who did Highfolk in the LGG, he's in the audience. Population 46,000, 79% elves, 60% of those are high, 40% are Sylvan, 9% humans, mostly Iridian, some Sul, 5% half elves, 3% halfling, tall fellows, gnomes, dwarves, and half orcs. Really not a ton of half orcs in the region.
Even though
Well, and that's the region that is largely Highfolk Town and the surrounding
right,
dale.
that's
and
not the Vestry.
Right.
That's the Valley. That's the Highfolk.
Right.
Running
No,
up.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's
Because
very
notice
cool.
there are no gray elves there either. Gray elves are in the Timeless Tree area. That's why there's no
Yep.
gray elves in the Valley.
Well, they just didn't have a big enough population to register 1% of
Oh yeah, it's 'cause
46,000, it sounds like, according to whoever did the population here in the LGG.
And that math was probably done by Eric Mona, I suspect.
I think they inflated the population numbers. If we go back and look at the early box sets, I bet we'll see for Highfolk a much lower population number.
Oh yeah.
I think that was because it's a few years later, right? Like, this is well after the Greyhawk Wars.
No, I mean, even right. I think the early box sets, they would use like adult male for the
Ooh.
population, whereas
Yeah, the
LGG
population-
used
Guy
adults.
just
Yeah,
threw some shots out in chat. I did that math,
Nice.
but Roger Moore interfered.
Oh,
Oh,
all right.
Shots fired.
There you go.
But the population number has always been very contentious in the
always has
Greyhawk
been.
community, and that they started low and then they increased with every version of Greyhawk, basically.
because the population density
they
comes
were-
out to be very low, but
they ridiculous.
we don't have monsters, right? You know, we don't have displacer beasts and dragons
Right.
Yeah.
eating our sheep. So
Yeah, but I think
Yeah,
they're in the beginning they're kind of ridiculously low for the area. It's kind of that would be like having 2,000 people living in Alaska. It's
Yeah.
it's
which,
like
which
Greenland
happened
density.
300 years ago or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah,
or
it's like
3,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's
war
like
games,
Greenland
pretty much.
density, population density, and
So-
it's kind of boring in a big country.
Rich Longitalis is on, and Greg, you can make him very happy. Tell us about the evil Backloonish guy again. Tell us what his whole premise was. This is really a cool story.
So there was he worshipped Nerul, and he was actually a rival of Ayu's Ayu's did at the time. The Forces Ayu's didn't know that when it started. He had his own plans for the Vespi, and in fact, he had plans that were not all dissimilar to the Emerald Dawn, with the idea of gathering up this magic and using it to empower himself and etc.
That's cool.
And he took a different take. So, like, he wiped out the Grugach. He made them seem to be those undead. He's also the one. Chris Tulloch wrote an adventure that was actually one of the first ones that we thought about a content warning type adventure, because it's the first time the Beastmen of the High Forest are portrayed.
Mhm.
and the Backloonish man had set up basically a lab where he is trying to study them in very like Dr. Mengele style
Oh, geez.
tortures. Like it was gruesome. And so we walk this really fine line of you say just enough and then you let the DM color what's appropriate for the people at the table with the table. Right.
Wow,
And it was, yeah, you're right. It bordered on that. And it was an interesting one because before it even came out, I remember Chris, he wrote it, emailed it, and then sent in he called Wizards like immediately. He's like, I got to talk about this adventure because I need to know what you need me to take out. Like let's talk about it because I'm happy to change it. And I think it actually passed. Like Chris did a really good job being sensitive to like those descriptions while still letting your mind go and realize like, wow, that could be gruesome. So if you're that kind of person who loves those horror movies, in your head, you're picturing really horrible things. If not, the description was plain enough that you could, kind of gloss over it. But it was, we ended up with these mutated alternate beastmen that worked for him as well, that were basically feral, like super monsters.
Cool. Was he a necromancer or a mage?
Yes.
He was a necromancer.
He was a wizard. He actually ended up in his final design. He was 7 Veils.
Yes.
I forget what was it called. Jeremy, help me out because I stole your design when I started building him. If you're still on in the chat. So I think he was part Fate Spinner, part
Wixa.
The 7 Veils thing was built around the prismatic spells.
Yes.
God.
He was necromancer, 7 Veils, Fate Spinner. He was like a 20th level, effectively different kinds of wizard mixed up.
Okay.
Good lord.
Yeah.
Sounds like
and the
Abby
characters
Dalzin,
fought him
Mike.
eventually. Yeah.
Sounds like on that level.
Not that complicated.
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah.
Excellent.
High level combat was so silly in 3rd edition.
Yeah. Well.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So as we continue through these great meta orgs, tell me about dwarves in the Hammerstrike clan. It's not much here. It's just there's just a paragraph or two saying it's more of a family as opposed to an organization.
Yeah. So originally the Hammerstrike clan was this small group of dwarves that lived in Verbeek Hill, if I remember right.
Okay.
Do you remember, Tony, where they started?
Yes, we have Verbeek.
Yeah. And then that really expanded substantially when we did one of the conflicts in the Vespi and they discovered the lost the Hammerstrikes hired you to find this lost dwarven enclave of Dargus Moor. And then once those dwarves who hadn't been on the surface for it was like 500 years.
Okay.
And they had like completely walled themselves off. It became a much bigger family. Like you had the opportunity to join up and play a dwarf who is coming to the surface for the first time in their life and knew nothing about it.
Oh,
and
wow.
They just know they have these distant relatives called the Hammerstrikes. Tony, what memories do you have any good stories of a Hammerstrike dwarves?
I had an elf, so it didn't there weren't a lot of dwarven players, I don't think. Like there were more the second time around, I think.
Yeah.
Once those lost dwarves came through, but there were not a lot of players, and so I don't think there was a ton of demand for dwarven stories.
All right, I got the map up. I'm assuming a lot of these names here are clan names or locations that Anna's placed on the map, like Lunadora.
Yep.
Okay. That is neat. So now we know, Anna, where a lot of these came from.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So add it up. Gildan Hand.
And I must have somewhere. We did a map where I took in like a 20% or 50% or so transparency and overlaid the clan like blobs of different color with their individual heraldry. There was a shield for every one of the clans.
Really?
And we overlaid what their clan territories were in the Vespi.
Oh, that'd be neat.
Man,
share with the audience if you can find it.
If you had those Clan Shield designs, I would give them to Anna, and right, Anna? Oh my gosh,
that would be awesome.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's not a thing I have on this current computer that I'm on.
If you do
But
find
if
it
you can
sometime,
find them,
yeah.
that will be
stored somewhere.
Yeah, if you do it down the road, that would be great. So, yeah, Rich, I just use Linda Door as an example because there's a lot of added stuff here. That's really neat. That's good. I mean, you guys really detailed up this because the Vestry itself was like empty. I mean, even in the books, the I Use the Evil books, there's stuff in there, but there's swaths of land that's empty completely. So
yeah, I mean, it's literally hundreds and hundreds of miles across.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just is empty.
Anna, when you're doing your map, and we've told the audience this before, Anna's the only person who's read like 99% of Living Greyhawk Adventures, right?
I read through. I skip the technical bits and so on, but I skim through, especially the overview and the story arc and stuff. So I try to figure out settlement names and stuff like that. So things that are like roads mentioned and
Right.
stuff. So I usually skip over the detailed encounters and stuff because that. Normally not what I'm interested in but the overview of the stories, the summary and stuff like that, some of the background
and maps, the rudimentary maps that we would do back then.
Mm-hmm.
Were you
we had
reading,
really
for
good
instance,
maps?
They
Because,
vary.
Ours weren't great.
Yeah, it varied.
Bowman, Jason being an architect.
Oh, architect, right.
He drew a lot of our maps and they were very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like Living Greyhawk, and especially the maps. They go from like 0 to
right. Like we use
the whole
Campaign
gamut.
Cartographer 1 or something.
Yeah, some of them had like
one.
professional artists
man.
and stuff that were fantastic. They're some of the best Greyhawk maps ever produced, and some of them were just the crappiest scribbles done 2 days before the convention or something like that. Someone just scribbled something in paint or on a piece of paper and scanned it and put it in. So it has the whole gamut of qualities.
When you were reading Adventures, Anna, did you do them by region? Like, did you go through all the Highfolks in order?
Yes,
or
I used most of them. I did by area, so to speak. So a lot of the times what I did, I took the summary sections and put them together in a Word document, and then I read through that first, and then I simply highlighted areas that of interest, so to speak, and then I read those areas more in depth, so to speak. One was like, oh, this is interesting, that there's something in it, so to speak, and so I took all I took all the juicy bits out of each adventure, and then I read through those bits and highlighted, oh, there's a place here, and then I need to go in and read the whole section in that adventure. So, but there was almost always something in it, and the interesting thing is that you might have a town that appears a little bit in this adventure, and then you get another little bit in another adventure where they talk about the size of the town, or it has defenses, so that's not mentioned in the first one. So it's a little bit like archaeology. You can't just read once and get all the data in one place. You get a little bit here, a little bit there. There's the forest mentioned here, and the river mentioned somewhere else because they have to cross it. And
right, you had to put all these things together in your brain and then on your map. Excuse me. Anna hasn't met a PDF password that she can't crack. And with her new machine, I think she could take on the NSA.
Well, I'm working on. I'm putting together really big chunks of data, but it's invaluable to have that type of detailed information. The problem is that it's never put together for me, so to speak. It's put together to run. So I have to read it in a different way than you have if you run the adventure, if you play it, because I'm reading it for the geography information and things that can give me details, so to speak. And
doing things like this is like a Ben Riggs history of D&D sort of thing. You should do a history of Greyhawk and how the world expanded through these
maps.
It's kind of cool.
Idea.
I'm starting to dig in deep now. Shieldlands I've worked now for 3 years. Now I'm looking into both Elvendom, and thanks to Scott McMillan's awesome series of article on Grey Kingdom, I'm getting deep into that rabbit hole again that I was 10-15 years ago, and now I'm getting realized I missed a lot. So I'm going to go over those with a fine-tuned comb again and
Awesome.
do some archaeology. And there's there's whole old kingdoms. I didn't know about Tourney and Loom the Mad and their escapades and stuff. Now I need to, and there's several place names I can deduct. And one thing is, like, I can mention just a tangent for like a minute here. Some place names are inferred, or I would say derived from the content. One of them is Woodford. I got a good question the other day saying, oh, there is no place Woodford, so to speak. It's just mentioned in Saga of the Old City when Gord meets and there's a fight between the Grey Kingdom folks and some woodsmen, and they meet at a place called Woodford, and it's mentioned in the book. And there is no town or settlement mentioned in the book, but I put a village there anyway for a couple of reasons. One is that if it's the only place you can cross a major river up and down between two major countries, someone probably lives there because it's good reason to get money, you get business. Someone is probably there to defend it, to control it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of these that are, I inferred it because I thought it would be probably logical that someone lived there, so to speak. So that, and I called that little village, but I didn't want to make it significant because it's not mentioned that there is a city or large town or anything. It's just mentioned that the place is Woodford, and then it's Gary only mentions the battle and all that. So some of it comes from that way. If you have a person with a name, has a castle, is not on anywhere on the map, but I placed a castle where I thought it would be appropriate. So
also, Anna takes stuff from published adventures and other sources. If you just have a map with locations that are being built post-adventure or not in, she doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because she wasn't there for Living Greyhawk. So I imagine
exactly. So
there's a lot more, there's probably a lot more settlements in the Valley of the Highfolk that no one knows about outside of the Living Greyhawk group, right?
Yeah.
I think that I was not the best at archiving back then. Like, there's definitely like a lot of things, like when it ended, I think a lot of us were like, okay, it's over, moving on, and did other things. And I bet if I dug through some, well, yeah, maybe you, you should.
I still have the very original player's guide.
Well,
I only have it
one
in
of
print
those.
though.
Nice.
I have one of the original prints too.
By the time the campaign ended, Greg, you were probably exhausted. You had to get on with real life.
That's awesome.
Maybe you wanted to.
Oh no, because I had to just be in charge of running like 3 other things.
I was about to ask, Living Forgotten Realms or whatever you moved on
I did
to.
the end of Living Green Regent. I did a good chunk of Mark of Heroes. I was the admin for one of the admins for Zendrick Expeditions at that time.
Oh, right.
Living Forgotten Realms started like just at the end there, and I jumped into that. So I was admin for more than one campaign at that time.
That's insane. See, so you didn't have time to do what I did. Like, this project of mine, the book, started probably in 2009, and I worked on it in my free time. I worked on it at some jobs. The U.S. Census Bureau was a very boring job at one point in my life, and I worked on my book till they figured out what I was doing and told me to stop. And I said, no, I'll just quit because I want to keep working on my book. And then grad school. It takes a lot of work to save this because we weren't thinking back then. I think we were assuming all of this stuff would get archived by Wizards of the Coast and maybe be some sort of publicly accessible library archive that people could refer back to later. Because we've been told, that I believe, at the beginning of the campaign, Living Greyhawk was supposed to create new canon. Like, the best bits from Living Greyhawk would be incorporated into the Greyhawk canon. That was the promise they used to get Circle members and Triad members. I believe.
But it did move into Greyhawk Journal. Like, some of the things did show up.
Right. Journals,
But then...
Or in Dungeon. There's like, the Shieldlands is in there, Harby's in there, all from the Living Greyhawk campaign.
Yep.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, Gary was a huge help to me with my book.
So
it came out in 2012, so that would have been a long time ago.
As we wind this down, if someone put something in chat, I'm not opening it. I don't want to crash the stream. So I don't know. I see a chat with a 1 on there. I'm not sure who did that, but I can't open it because I don't want to like that. So, hey, Prometheus, good to see you. So give me an overall, like, a great experience or what you thought, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Tony and Greg there, as far as like.
Go ahead, Tony.
I had, even to this day, it is the most fun that I have had in a sort of a shared world campaign, even outbeating a lot of home campaigns, because they were really good about making it feel like a home campaign and making sure that the player characters actually had an impact on the story. And that draws people in and makes them way more gung-ho. You know, if you think you can change an outcome or affect it, and, you know, even if you really can't, I mean, I'm sure that happened, but as long if they feel like that, then people are amazing. But I mean, those interactives, those unique interactives, by the way, Greg, I counted, you did 5 of them.
Well, no, we did 5 conflicts. I think only 2 of them were cross cons. But yes, we did like 5 of them.
Yeah,
it's just such a great name, Conflict in the Vesby.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, because it was. I would let 80 people tell me their top 3 goals as a player or a character. And then I would write an adventure that had, I think actually got to do 5 goals. And I would take 3 and I would literally write a 1-page background with what your goals are. And if you can meet any one of the 3 goals I picked, you get full XP and treasure. Like, that's how it worked. And there were 80 times 3 goals that all interweaved in a 3-day, continuous 3-day interactive story that we built. And I did.
So the interactive wasn't one Saturday night session.
Oh no, it was a whole weekend.
It was 3 days.
Wow, very cool.
There was always a like tabletop adventure type part to it. There was always a battle interactive part to it, and there were several LARP parts to it. So you would do things where you'd be like, well, we're going with the section that's doing the tabletop that's going into the dungeon over here because somebody has to get this thing. We're going with the group that's going to this like part of the forest to recover this thing. We're doing that. And then you would come back in the LARP and we would not share what people knew. Sure. It was up to them to tell anyone if they wanted to, what they found and what they had. And people would hold things back, right? They'd try to jockey for like, I know you've got another secret. I will tell you, but only if you fess up first. Or I will give you the item you need, but only if you promise during the battle interactive, you're going to come with me to go kill this one guy who wronged my brother 10 years ago or whatever. And people would resolve these incredibly complicated plots. Like people would come and say, you know, my backstory is that from my whole character is that my brother is missing and I've only become an adventurer to find him. And someone else would say, this guy showed up 10 years ago and he burned my village down and I'm looking to kill him. And so, of course, his brother got into some trouble, burned a village down, and then they would come to, you know, it would be that conflict. And that's why it was conflict in the Vespi.
That's hilarious.
It was cool. And like, you know, he did like one time they took people from who came and visited from out of regions and gave them NPCs, but made people think that they were PCs.
It was better.
Cool. Oh, wow.
When you showed up to register, you registered and you were then moved into a separate room with me and Chris Tulak sitting on the other side of the table. We would hand you a piece of paper with your goals and everything, ask you to read it, and ask you if you understood and if you had any questions. Except for 3 people that everyone knew were from out of region and traveled a lot.
Okay.
There would be 2 envelopes. And I would say, in this envelope is everything you ever wanted. It's everything you asked for. In this envelope is something no one else will ever get to do but you. And every time they chose the other envelope, and inside it is another character with a note that says, tell everyone this is your like BK character. And you want to play your BK character instead of your Highfolk character because you're asking for, you know, this magic item access or whatever, some lame reason. But really, you're one of the Boneheart's primary apprentices. Nice. And your goal is to recover the item no matter what. Or
that's amazing.
It was
to see people's faces.
Why didn't you tell us you were doing that? Because I would have stolen that idea. That's brilliant. I wouldn't have done it as well, but I would have stolen it. That's amazing.
we would to see,
That
and we
is-
always
that's
gave it to
genius.
people we knew were really good role players, and like, oh, well, I should hold the MacGuffin because then no one knows my character, so I'm not tied to anything. And the
Right.
second they would get the MacGuffin, they'd be like, power word kill on that guy, and then I teleport away.
Like having the bad guys embedded in the party is
Yep.
such a nefarious idea and such a great idea.
It was
Oh.
awesome. And I met one of my good friends that way. And he kept going, he looks at me before when it was time to turn. And we've been playing for days, He looks at me and he goes, I'm so sorry. And he's like, I stab her. What?
Because at first you're like, no player versus player in Living Greyhawk, dude.
Yeah. But he's like, I'm so sorry. And he was like, and then he'd be like, he's like, okay, it's his turn. And he's like, okay, now I spell over here. He's like, I'm sorry, guys. It was so funny.
Yeah, well, because
Blame
the
Greg.
table he was at was like 6th level, except he was like a 12th level cleric.
Yeah.
He was a very hard fight
Yeah.
for that APL.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was
That's
hilarious.
amazing. God, if I could get a TARDIS, I'm adding that to my list of things to do is go to a conflict.
I appreciate why, as a player, those were your favorites. My favorite will always be the Unity interactive. We had an interactive, not at a conflict, that was at the end of year 4. So basically, the finals, year 5's the final, right, of that arc, and it's going to be the big fights. And at this point, every group still disagrees, and all the characters are basically at each other's throats. They're literally like just short of murdering each other. And so in the storyline that had been going, All Good Things, the adventure that Casey mentioned was part of the storyline, was basically about bringing the Elven clans back together so that they could bring everyone else back together. And in that storyline, one of the Shandareth great families lost its only heir. And so in it, that that character, that NPC, fostered several PC elves, and basically like sort of a contest to see who was going to be his real heir.
Oh, cool.
And that ended up with a wedding between one PC and that elf, and then another elf being named the heir. So basically 2 PCs were brought into the royal family as part of it. But as part of this, I wrote a 1-page, literally somebody's like, I'm really disappointed at you at how like scripted this was. It was 1 page. I wrote 1 page. And instead, I gave everyone goals. I gave everyone things. And I may have been pretty good at that time of guessing what people wanted and who they would talk to. And I very specifically invited DMs who I know would role play certain NPCs well. Like there was one NPC who, while a good guy, everyone hated. He was rude, he was crude, he was mean. And so a good friend, Triad member from Verbank, Michael Menza, I was like, Michael, only you can play this guy because he is such a insert explicative, and he needs to be that. But he also has to be the guy that everyone needs in the end. And I'm like, only you can do it justice. And we did that for all the NPCs.
Wow.
And then I just let everyone go for 6 hours. There was no script. I let 250 people role play and literally choose the future of the region. And the Unity was called Unity because my guess was that if I gave them all the right tools, they would eventually decide that destruction by IUs was worse than working together.
Sure.
And they did. They eventually all came together, at least for 3/4 of a year before the Emerald Dawn was fully revealed. And once they had
And
beat,
then it's splintered again.
and then everybody split it apart again. But yeah,
250 people
That is awesome.
is a massive number. Very few of the regions hit that kind of number for their big event.
Yeah.
Sounds like a wonderful,
amazing.
wonderful time, and I'm glad you
Yes.
both have such fond memories. Because that's hard to It's like reminiscing with the friends at a bar or around the table and just talking up what happened there, and that's why we love these discussions.
And you two met at Tony's first Living Greyhawk game, I think she
Yep.
said, right?
Yep.
So-
It was at a college, right? Where was
at
it?
Milwaukee School of Engineering,
Yeah.
which I'll note that was probably like my 2nd or 3rd Greyhawk game ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And
I
Britt and I
being a
met during
student.
Living Greyhawk, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being a student, going to cons was very expensive,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I
I
was
was
like,
also a college student, so
yeah. And so when they offered the opportunity, like, hey, you can run adventures and get into the con for free,
Right.
and somebody made a comment of, oh, but we need someone to run slot zeros. And I said, well, wait a minute. Could I run the slot zeros, get in for free, and then play at the convention? And people were, I mean, they were amenable to that. They were like, well, that's great because I need all the DMs to play ahead of time. If you're
Right.
willing to eat an adventure or two and do that.
Tell the audience what a slot zero is.
So back in the day, you could not replay an adventure. So if you ran it, you were forever barred from playing it.
Yep.
So it was very hard to get DMs. So what they would do is they would have one or two volunteers and then usually the Triad because they couldn't play them anyway.
Or the author.
Or the author, yes. And they would run like a weekend or two before the convention. They would run all the DMs through the adventures. And that's how you would get your DMs to volunteer because they were now not banned from playing. In fact, a lot of the really big adventuring companies that we talked about, or the really big like movers and shaker people that eventually in the region, that's how a lot of them got their start. They volunteered for those slot zeros. And then people knew who they were then because of that.
Yeah. I mean, without the volunteer judges, I mean, Triad members were volunteers. Circle members were barely paid a pittance. Without the volunteer judges, Living Greyhawk wouldn't have existed, no matter how many players it was able to pull in to the storylines in all the different regions. So
yeah.
And realize how little people were paid for writing or for the volunteers who were quote unquote volunteers that were paid. I mean, we're talking $50.
I got 50 and $100.
Yeah,
Two times
one to
I got
two
paid.
regional. Yep.
Yeah.
2 times
$50
I actually got
for regionals, 100 for cores. And if you ran a con like Conrad Brandemill did, that was a private enterprise, and he could reach out to Wizards and ask for swag. They eventually created a system where you could say, this is my con, this is how many people are going to be here. Do I qualify for swag? And they would send him some minis and stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't huge. You would get a box with like 5 books and a couple of, 4 or 5 boxes of minis and some cards and stuff. Like, it wasn't like gigantic. They weren't rolling out huge amounts of money.
I remember when he got the giant red dragon. That was like the huge, like he was like, I can't believe they sent me, and we raffled it off. Nice. Or he did, but we helped him raffle it off because it was such a big deal. But anyway, that's just Living Greyhawk will never be replicated because it was slave labor. We were indentured servants. They got so many book sales because Living Greyhawk, they would say, well, you can now use this thing from this book. And players had to buy it to use it in the campaign. We never saw a dime.
Well, and people were rabid, like Paizo used to say all the time. They were desperate to have a Greyhawk article that was from Living Greyhawk. Because the sales on that issue alone would be like so much bigger, right? Like, we get this one Living Greyhawk thing and it has one tiny little thing that a character can use.
Right.
Now everyone in the entire campaign buys it.
Yeah. Because you had to have the physical copy.
Yep.
At the table to use it. And because the Dungeon Master might not own Races of the Wild. They didn't have to. The adventures had to reprint anything an NPC used from Races of the Wild. So the Dungeon Master didn't have to own that book. But if you were a player and you wanted to be an initiate of the Sevenfold Veil, you needed to own whatever splat book that prestige class was in. So that when the Dungeon Master said, like, what the shit? You needed to be able to give him the book.
Too much.
Oh, pardon my language.
Sorry, don't worry about it. So, Tony and Greg, thanks. Let's do, what do you guys want to shout out anything you're doing? Currently, project.
Go ahead, Greg. You're super busy.
Well, actually, I'm in an interesting lull. I'm doing a project for Kobold Press that I can't really talk about.
Okay.
But I'm in the process of a project for them. I'm doing a little Esper Genesis adventure that Tony's actually the editor for. That we'll do. That's just it's a a community created content one that's actually just a little bit of an experiment. But other than that, this is the first time in forever that I am not in the middle of writing like a huge book. So it's amazing. I actually like started to clean my office and whatnot.
I can see it's not in boxes. Actually.
No. Well, there's a few boxes over here you can't see. But
How long have you been at this residence?
This is year 8. I literally no lie. I own everything that's ever been done for Ravenloft. And I thought I was missing the gold map, the gold promo map from Origins that they did like years and years and years and years ago. I bid on one and dropped out of an eBay auction at 1,500.
Oh my God.
I am super glad because I opened a box the other day and I found one that I didn't know I had.
What did that come in? The original Ravenloft box set?
No, they had a couple of hundred. They have what were called the gold promo maps. They had one for Forgotten Realms and one for Ravenloft. And in the late 90s or mid 90s, they did a giveaway. It was like 100 or 200 a day at Origins only.
Oh.
And so they're super rare. Like I didn't think I had them. I don't actually know where I got them. It wasn't on my list, but
which is funny because he was gonna buy it off eBay and we talked about it and he got outbid.
Yeah, I went up to 1,500. I was like, because it's literally the only item I do not own was this one promo, and I was like, it bothered me every day that I didn't own it. I mean, I'm not Alex Kammer and the 10 of each thing that he might own.
Yeah, but there's always something you just nibbles at you that you don't have, because we're all paranoid like that and crazy when it comes to that.
Oh, you guys would not have been happy when I had water in my game room and I had to throw away at least half of my gaming books because they got mold.
Oh,
disaster!
That's worse than my.
It was like one of those pressboard bookshelves, and the water came in, and it was just on the backside. So when I went and I took out a book, there was like this far up, but not the end that you could see, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Oh no, Tony! This house my wife and I bought 2 years ago had carpet in the basement. When it was inspected, the people who were moving out, who were selling it, had stacked all their totes in a certain section of the basement where we couldn't get to the floor. And the inspector turned to us and said, I can't tell, if there's any problems over there. And we said, what could be wrong? We move in, the carpet's soaking wet because there had been a leak behind the drywall. We didn't catch that until after we'd put one of those IKEA paxes with full of stuff, and she had like a cardboard box full of her nice Flugvog shoes or some fancy, comfortable, high-heeled shoe she loves, and they all got turned into like mold death shoes, and so I feel your pain when it comes to the water damage of your books.
Yeah. I forget how many. I think I had to throw away 79 books.
Oh my god!
It was a lot of. There were a lot of good books in that pile.
There are ones that I will never be able to afford to replace. They're worth a lot of money now.
Tony, what are you working on? I'm sure you've got something.
Yes.
I just finished a big project up for Ghostfire, so that was cool. I have some people who have reached out, so we'll see if those kind of go through. I have a big project, maybe for Alchemy RPG, so that'll be cool. Otherwise, just trying to. My projects recently have been huge buggers, so they take a lot of time.
On some of the same projects, and go write 20,000, 30,000 words. That is not a small amount.
Not small. Well, and I hope you're getting an industry standard rate for that. That's a whole nother discussion we can talk about, freelancing rates and whatnot, and which companies to work for and which ones to avoid. That I don't know if you want to get that public about it, but
no, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably. I would love to hear it. You probably can't say that stuff. Yeah,
we can do that. We can do that on another channel.
Let's just do that when we're drunk in a bar.
I love Scott's protection of his brand. Yeah. Oh wait.
Yeah.
No.
We don't want to piss off anyone here. So. Well, we all appreciate you coming on. Mike, did you say 2 words tonight?
I'd said a few words.
Okay. And Anna was pretty quiet.
At least two.
Oh yeah, I didn't have to. There was an awesome discussion.
It
I
was
didn't
a
want to
great
interrupt
discussion.
it. So yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, so
Right.
we're gonna do 4 giveaways tonight. Now we may have to log in for Casey's, redo drawings because remember this thing's been wonky and only been doing 3 at a time. So we'll see. Real quick, I'm gonna burn through these 10 seconds. So tomorrow night we start adventure 997.
Getting
All right,
there.
I got the terrain set up for this. And remember, I got a special also with All Stars on Saturday morning. With a bunch of players on Saturday morning, but we're going to be out here, Sour Load, a published location in from the Ashes. Look, the Doomgrinder's not far, so it may taint it, but just so assistance to Sour Load. It's an interesting gnomish location, so that'll be what we're doing then. So, Echoes of a Dark Past, 2 of these in PDF. And then Raven's Rook.
Will was in the audience
Will's in
earlier.
the
I don't know if
audience.
he.
Will, if
Yeah.
you're still there, he may be lurking. Will, if you're still there, put your name up so people can, because code-wise, it's all going to Will, or you can get it to me if Will's in lurk mode. I know I saw him on, but I think he may be. There you are. See that? Giant Stop 01. You are to whisper him your email address, because he will get the code for each to you, okay, for these 3. So I'm going to close this out. Let's do this. 10 seconds. We'll close this out. Thank you all for that massive hype train earlier today, and thank you all for what a great show tonight. It was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you guys rescheduling so that we could do this from last week.
Yeah.
Troy just put it in chat if you want to order it online. If you
Nice.
don't win here, yep. So here we go. Barry, you won. You get your choice, Barry. Do you want the hardback of Raven's Rook? Or do you want one of the PDFs of Echoes of a Dark Past? So I need to know for you. You are first. Next winner is Astraliar. There you go, Astraliar. So there's one of yours. Hard copy, Barry. Whisper Giant Stomp. Giant Stomp _01 with your email address. Astraliar. Whisper Giant Stomp for your PDF of Echoes of a Dark Past. Third winner. Scala
I'll make
Grimer.
sure he does it if he doesn't.
Please, that would be great.
I'll give it
Jeremy
to you.
will be running that for us.
Scala,
Yeah.
Write in what you choose. Yeah, Scala Grimer, Whisper Giant Stomp _01. You win Echoes of a Dark Past in PDF as well. Okay. One last thing. It looks like I can pick a win. Look, now I can pick a 4th winner.
Oh yeah.
The 4th winner here will get Casey's book. You'll have to whisper R Draco.
IU's himself will inscribe a message to
name
your
and
PC.
address. Name and address to R Draco. Put your name in chat, Casey, right now, please. So everyone can see where they got to go to. All right.
Well, that's me.
Yeah, there you go. Right to Casey. All right, R Draco. And the winner for this is Kai Brightwing. Kai, grats.
Congrats.
Whisper to Kai, whisper name and address to Casey, who will send this directly to you. All right? Awesome.
Excellent.
All right, sounds
Congratulations,
good.
everybody.
Yeah, congrats.
And that link, people last week were asking me to write a blog post about my first time hosting D&D since COVID, because I've been collecting terrain for 3 years through Kickstarters.
Nice.
So I finally wrote, my blog hadn't had activity since 2019. So I finally wrote a blog post, and if you're interested in, the Battle of Stonehill Fortress that we did a couple weeks ago here at home with a variety of skinny minis and various terrain elements, please feel free to read my blog post and leave me a comment.
Adam, Mike, anything you want to shout out real quick? I'm sorry. My
yes,
brain's
I want to shout out to a friend of mine. He's an awesome creator in the RPG field. Owen Casey Stevens. He's been battling cancer and been in and out of hospital for a while. He seems to do a little bit better. That was a positive report. And there is a couple of humble bundles or bundles of awesome products and stuff that you can help him. So I'm going to put first to his website and blog where you can read about it. And he is an amazing storyteller. Even when he's ill and going in and out of hospital, even that is worthy of a read, so to speak. And there's also 2 fantastic bundles that put together with hundreds of dollars worth of stuff for not that much money at all. It's like $35. You get $700 worth of PDFs and stuff.
Awesome.
and so there's 2 of them. So I'm put in there. So we all want Owen to get well and be back and writing awesome stuff again. So
Definitely.
Yep. So that's the first, and then I could just say quickly, I'm working on the defenses of Crit Wall, is an analysis of the defenses of Crit Wall, and I think that will be a city planning that I never seen done for any fantasy city. It's coming soon.
Very cool.
Mike, anything you want to shout out?
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Greg.
Yes,
I'm from
absolutely.
Illinois. I'm from Illinois, and you make me wish I had lived in Wisconsin. But otherwise, go to Greyhawk. I have an article on there about gods.
Nice. Yes, definitely. It's a good one too. So see you all tomorrow night. We got Titan Dice to give away tomorrow night and Saturday morning, where I have Mike Disney, Little Bird, Heather Hex, Rob Phantom NJ, Tempest OC, all playing a game called. It's going to be called Overwhelmed. That's a special game on Saturday
Jay,
morning.
you skipped my what I got going on real quick.
You talked enough.
All right. I was going to tell Tony though.
What?
I'm running.
Oh,
I don't think I've gotten to tell Tony. I'm running Candlekeep Mysteries as a Scooby-Doo Adventures. The PCs work in Candlekeep. And they do each adventure as an episode and unrelated to each other. They've just reached 11th level. So your adventure is like 5 away for this group. And it's the first time they've ever played characters higher than like 9th level. So I'm really looking forward to getting.
I actually started running Candlekeep Mysteries as well.
Nice.
I'm still in the middle of the first adventure. It's early.
You doing Scooby-Doo where they work at Candlekeep?
No, but
I didn't screw around. I just went right to Tony's because it was the best.
Yeah.
See,
just right to the end.
right
I like
to the
it.
16th. Yeah, because I put it right in.
That is a great adventure.
It was. It was.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was really neat to see you convert it to 1.J.
It was disturbing. It was
Nice. I was told I was not allowed to watch nature shows anymore.
Oh my gosh! But it was awesome. And
good
it
inspiration.
fit right in with Zukt. Oh, Zuktmoy. We all found out last Saturday morning that Rob and I were screwing around with Zuktmoy, and I was like, "What?"
Yep.
Yeah. Rob Coombs
that was
told us
really
the story.
you. Yeah.
It was really
That
disturbing.
was really you. Yeah.
Absolutely. But so stuff we find out here. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow night. Thursday night, Saturday morning, Sunday night. All right, and then we got a ton of other stuff coming up. I'm gonna hit the wrong button like always when we do. Let's read the 20 sides of every story. How's that sound? Right into Alex's group there, the newest member we have of the Greyhawk Creative Stream team. So 20 sides. So we got 20 sides every story. There we go.
What are we gonna do for 200?
Gary said do a best of Legends and Lore highlights, which I'm okay with, but we can talk about that in chat, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Great show.
That was great.
Yep.
Let's make sure the
That was
raid
fun.
went in. We're good. Should be good here.
Yep.
So, yeah.
83. That's a good number.
Yeah, it was real good.
Oh, you were at 100 for a while there.
Yeah, the raid normally sometimes people drop off and all.
Yeah, some people drop off before the raid goes
it's
through.
just the way it
So,
works.
yeah.
Or there's duplicates, or they're already